Okay, we're starting to read. I'm ignoring you. I'm ignoring you, chat. I love you. If I don't respond to you, it's because I'm reading. I will read what you guys are saying to me sometimes, but I probably won't respond. But please feel free to keep chatting with each other by all means. I know that the books aren't for everybody, and I know you guys are in the middle of a conversation, so ignore me harder. Just makes sense to stream without shut up, Arthur. That's true. I feel like you're begging for it lately, though. Dumb blonde voice. Okay. Dumb blonde voice was redeemed, so we have to do the first, like, page or so in dumb blonde voice. I just ate a bunch of eggs, so this might be kind of hard. We are now starting the reading of Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. We are on chapter 3. If you're watching this on the YouTube VOD, that means the first couple hours of stream were cut off. If you would like to see the entire VOD where we banter in the beginning, you can watch that on Twitch. But we are reading Lord of the Rings, and this is chapter 3, the Uruk-hai. If you would like to join us for live readings, we do them sometimes on Twitch and YouTube. SheriffBananas. We are live Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Pretty much always. Sometimes I'm late. So if you'd like to join us, I'd love to have you as part of the community. And we shall commence reading now. Unfortunately, I have to be in a dumb blonde voice at the beginning of this, so I'm very sorry. And I have to ignore chat. Thank you, doctor. Chapter 3, the Uruk-hai. Pippin lay in a dark and troubled dream. It seemed like he could hear his own small voice echoing in black tunnels, calling Frodo, Frodo. But instead of Frodo, hundreds of hideous orc faces grinned at him out of the shadows. Hundreds of hideous arms grasped for him from every side. Where was Merry? He woke. Cold air blew on his face. He was lying on his back. Evening was coming and the sky above was growing dim. He turned and found that the dream was little worse than the waking. His wrists, legs, and ankles were tied with cords. Beside him Merry lay, white-faced, with a dirty rag bound across his brows. All of them sat or stood a great company... All about them sat or stood a great company of orcs. Slowly, in Pippin's aching head, memory pieced itself together and became separated from dream shadows. Of course, he and Merry had run off into the woods. What had come over them? Why had they dashed off like that, taking no notice of old Strider? They had run a long way, shouting. He could not remember how far or how long. And then suddenly, they had crashed right into a group of orcs. I'm so sorry. They were standing listening, and they did not appear to see Merry and Pippin until they were almost in their arms. Then they yelled, and dozens of other goblins had sprung out of the trees. Merry and he had drawn their swords, but the orcs did not wish to fight, and had tried only to lay hold of them, even when Merry had cut off several of their arms and hands. Good old Merry. Man, I love Lord of the Rings. Vikinger, hello, how are you doing? I'm sorry that I'm reading this in a dumb blonde voice, guys. It was redeemed. It had to be done. The rest of this page will still be in this tone, and I am so sorry. I know some of you really hate this. Then Boromir had come leaping through the trees. He had made them fight. He slew many of them, and the rest fled. But they had not gone far on the way back when they were attacked again by 100 orcs at least, some of them very large, and they shot rain of arrows, always at Boromir. Boromir had blown his great horn until the woods rang, and at first the orcs had been dismayed and had drawn back, but when no answer, but the echoes came, they attacked more fiercely than ever. Pippin did not remember much more. His last memory was of Boromir leaning against a tree, plucking out an arrow. Then darkness fell suddenly. I suppose I was knocked on the head, he said to himself. I wonder if poor Merry is much hurt. What has happened to Boromir? Why didn't the orcs kill us? Where are we, and where are we going? This is fucking killing me. Okay, the page is over. Okay. Doing great. Hope you're doing well, too. I'm hanging in there. Had a rough week, but we're reading some Lord of the Rings, and I'm feeling good about it. So, glad to be indulging and helping others indulge in the great works of Tolkien as well. All right. He could not answer the questions. He felt cold and sick. I wish Gandalf had never persuaded Elrond to let us come, he thought. What good have I been? Just a nuisance, a passenger, a piece of luggage. And now I've been stolen and I'm just a piece of luggage for the orcs. I hope Strider or someone will come and claim us. But ought I to hope for it? Won't that throw out all the plans? I wish I could get free. It's alright, Viking, it happens. It happens, but we're doing better. Thank you. You're sweet. He struggled a little, quite uselessly. One of the orcs sitting near laughed and said something to a companion in their abominable tongue. Rest while you can, little fool, he said then to Pippin in the common speech, which he made almost as hideous as his own language. Rest while you can. We'll find a use for your legs before long. You'll wish you had not got none before we get home. If I had my way, you'd wish you were dead now, said the other. I'd make you squeak, you miserable rat. He stooped over Pippin, bringing his yellow fangs close to his face. He had a black knife with long, jagged blade in his hand. Lie quiet, or I'll tickle you with this, he hissed. Don't draw attention to yourself, or I may forget my orders. Curse the Isengarders. Ugluk... Can't read Black Tongue, dude. Ugluk Ukbakarak Shapush Saruman Glob Boobush Sky. He passed into a long, angry speech in his own tongue, and that slowly died away into muttering and snarling. Terrified Pippin lay still, though the pain at his wrists and ankles was growing, and the stones beneath him were boring into his back. To take his mind off himself, he listened intently to all that he could hear. There were many voices round about, and though orc speech sounded at all times full of hate and anger, it seemed plain that something like a quarrel had begun, and was getting hotter. To Pippin's surprise, he found that much of the talk was intelligible. Many of the orcs were using ordinary language. Apparently the members of the 2 or 3 quite different tribes were present, and they could not understand one another's orc speech. There was an angry debate concerning what they were to do now, which way they were to take, and what should be done with the prisoners. There's no time to kill them properly, said one. No time to play on this trip. That can't be helped, said another. But why not kill them quick? Kill them now. They're a cursed nuisance, and we're in a hurry. Everything's coming on, and we ought to get a move on. Orders, said a third voice in a deep growl. Kill all, but not the halflings. They are to be brought back alive as quickly as possible. That's my orders. What are they wanted for? Asked several voices. Why alive? Do they give good sport? No, I heard that one of them's got something that's wanted for the war, some elvish plot or another. Anyway, they'll both be questioned. Is that all you know? Why don't we search them and find out? We might find something that we could use ourselves. That's a very interesting remark, sneered a voice, softer than the others, but more evil. I may have to report that. The prisoners are not to be searched or plundered. Those are my orders. And mine too, said the deep voice. Alive and just captured, no spoiling. That's my orders. Not our orders, said one of the earlier voices. We've come all the way from the Minas to kill and avenge our folk. I wish to kill and then go back north. Then you can't wish again, said the growling voice. I am Ugluk. I command. I return to Isengard by the shortest road. Also, apologies. I tend to have to reread stuff sometimes. I am very dyslexic. Just a heads up to new listeners. I'm going to give you a follow on Insta. If you ever need someone to rant to or talk to or anything, shout out. Feel free to do whenever. Going through things alone's no option. Viking, that's really sweet. Thank you. I'll find you on there. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I lost my spot because I went on my dyslexic rant. Then you can wish again, said the growling voice. Oh, I already read that. Is Saruman the master of the great eye? Said the evil voice. We should go back at once to Luzburs. If we cross the great river, we might, said another voice. But there are not enough of us to venture down to the bridges. I came across, said the evil voice. A winged Nazgul awaits us northward on the east bank. Maybe. And then we'll fly off with our prisoners, and get all the pay and raise in Luzburs, and leave us on foot as best can through the horse country. No, we must stick together. These lands are dangerous, full of foul rebels and brigands. Aye, we must stick together, growled Ugluk. I don't trust you, little swine. You've no guts outside your own sties. But for us, you'd all have run away. We are fighting Uruk-hai. We slew the great warrior. We took the prisoners. We are the servants of Saruman the Wise, the White Hand, the hand that gives us man's flesh to eat. We came out of Isengard and led you here, and we shall lead you back by way we choose. I am Ugluk. I have spoken. This guy is so fucking pissy. Oh my god. You've spoken more than enough, Ugluk, sneered the evil voice. I wonder how they would like it in Luxburg. They might think the Ugluk's shoulders need relieving of swollen head. They might ask where his strange ideas came from. Did they come from Saruman, perhaps? Who does he think he is, setting up on his own with his filthy white badges? They might agree with me, with Grishnak, their trusted messenger. And I, Grishnak, say this, Saruman is a fool, and a dirty, treacherous fool. But the great eye is on him. Swine, is it? How do you folk like being called swine by the muckrackers of dirty little wizard? It's orc flesh they eat, I'll warrant. Many loud yells and orc speech answered him, and the ringing clash of weapons being drawn. Cautiously, Pippin rolled over, hoping to see what would happen. His guards had gone to join in the fray. In the twilight, he saw a large black orc, probably Ugluk, standing facing Grishnak, a short, crooked-legged creature, very broad, with long arms and hung almost to the ground. Round them were many smaller goblins. Pippin supposed that these were ones from the north. They had drawn their knives and swords, but hesitated to attack Ugluk. Ugluk shouted, and a number of other orcs of nearly his own size ran up. Then suddenly, without warning, Ugluk sprang forwards, and with 2 swift strokes swept off the head of 2 of his opponents. Grishnak stepped aside and vanished into the shadows. The others gave way, and one stepped backwards and fell over Mary's prostrate. I read that as prostate. Over Mary's prostrate form with a curse. Yet that probably saved his life, for Ugluk's followers leaped over him and cut down another with their broad-bladed swords. It was the yellow-fanged guard. His body fell right on top of Pippin, still clutching its long, saw-edged knife. Put up your weapons, shouted Ugluk, and let's have no more nonsense. We go straight west from here, and down the stair. From there, march to the downs, then along the river to the forest, and we march day and night. That clear? Now, thought Pippin, if only it takes that ugly fellow a little while for his troop under control, I've got a chance. A gleam of hope had come to him. The edge of the black knife had snicked his arm, and then slid down to his wrist. He felt blood trickling to his hand, but he also felt the cold touch of steel against his skin. The orcs were getting ready to march again, but some of the northerners were still unwilling, and Isengarders slew 2 more before the rest were cowed. Cowed? C-O-W-E-D. Lumar, so passive-aggressive. Cowed? Code? C-O-W-E-D? Anybody? Arthur? Like a cow? C-O-W-E-D? Cowed? Is it cowed? Yep, okay. Thank you. Where the fuck was I? There was much cursing and confusion. For the moment, Pippin was unwatched. His legs were securely bound, but his arms were only tied about the wrists, and his hands were in front of him. He could move them both together, though the bonds were cruelly tight. He pushed the dead orc to one side, then, hardly daring to breathe, he drew the knot of the wrist cord up and down against the blade of the knife. It was sharp, and the dead hand held it fast. The cord was cut! Quickly, Pippin took it in his fingers and knotted it against a loose bracelet of 2 loops, and it slipped over his hands. Then he lay very still. "Pick up those prisoners," shouted Ugluk. "Don't play any tricks with them. They are not alive. When we get back, someone else will die too." An orc seized Pippin like a sack, put its head over... Dyslexia is a hell of a drug. I keep reading stuff, like, before I read it that's, like, really not appropriate. Okay. An orc seized Pippin like a sack, put its head between his tied hands, grabbed his arms, and dragged them down until Pippin's face was crushed against its neck. Then it jolted off with him. Another treated Merry in the same way. The orc's claw-like hand gripped Pippin's arm like iron. The nails bit into him. He shut his eyes and slipped back into evil dreams. Suddenly, he was thrown onto the stony floor again. It was early night, but the slim moon was already falling westward. They were on the edge of the cliff that seemed to look over the sea of pale mist. There was the sound of water falling nearby. "The scouts have come back at last," said an orc close at hand. "Well, what did you discover?" growled the voice of Uruk. "Only a single horseman, and he made off westwards. All is clear now." "Now, I dare say, but for how long? You fools! You should have shot him. He'll raise the alarm. The cursed horse breeders will hear of us by morning. Now we'll have to leg it up double quick." A shadow bent over Pippin. It was Uruk. "Sit up," said the orc. "My lads are tired of lugging you about. We've got to climb down, and you must use your legs. Be helpful now. No crying out, no trying to escape. We have ways of paying for tricks that you won't like, though they won't spoil your usefulness for the master." He cut the thongs round Pippin's legs and ankles, picked him up by the hair, and stood him on his feet. Pippin fell down, and Uruk dragged him up by his hair again. Several orcs laughed. Uruk thrust a flask between his teeth and poured some burning liquid down his throat. Felt like a hot, fierce glow flow through him. He felt a hot, fierce glow flow through him. The pain in his legs and ankles vanished. He could stand. "Now for the other," said Uruk. Pippin saw him go to Merry, who was laying close by, and kick him. Merry groaned. Seizing him roughly, Uruk pulled him up into sitting position and tore the bandage off his head. Then he smeared the wound with some dark stuff out of a small wooden box. Merry cried out and struggled wildly. The orcs clapped and hooted. "Can't take his medicine," they jeered. "Doesn't know what's good for him. Aye, we shall have some fun for later." But at the moment Uruk was not engaged in sport. He needed speed, and had to humor unwilling followers. He was healing Merry in orc fashion, and his treatment worked swiftly. When he had forced a drink and flashed down the hobbit's throat, cut his leg bonds, and dragged him to his feet, Merry stood up, looking pale but grim and defiant, and very much alive. The gash in his forehead gave him no more trouble, but he bore a brown scar to the end of his days. "Hello, Pippin," he said. "He's got to come this little expedition, too. Where do we get bed and breakfast?" "Now then," said Uruk, "none of that. Hold your tongues. No talk to one another. Any trouble will be reported to the other end, and he'll know how to pay you. You'll get bed and breakfast all right, more than you can stomach." Tattoo. Beep beep. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt the reading too much. I don't know if you saw it or not. Sorry. The orc band began to descend a narrow ravine leading down into the misty plain below. Merry and Pippin, separated by a dozen orcs or more, climbed down with them. At the bottom, they stepped onto the grass, and the hearts of hobbits rose. "Now straight on," shouted Uruk. "West and little north. Follow Lugdush." "What are we going to do at sunrise?" said some of the northerners. "Go on running," said Uruk. "What do you think? Sit on the grass and wait for the Whiteskins to join the picnic." "But we can't run in the sunlight." "You'll run with me behind you," said Uruk. "Run, or you'll never see your beloved holes again. By the White Hand, what's the use of sending out mountain maggots on a trip only half trained? Run, curse you! Run while night lasts." Then the whole company began to run with the long, loping strides of orcs. They kept no order, thrusting, jostling, and cursing, yet their speed was very great. Each hobbit had a guard of 3. Pippin was far back in the line. He wondered how long he would be able to go on at that pace. He had no food since the morning. One of the guards had a whip, but at present the orc liquor was still hot in him. His wits, too, were wide awake. Every now and again there came into his mind, unbidden, a vision of the keen face of Strider bending over a dark trail and running behind. But what could even a ranger see except a confused trail of orc feet? His own little prince and Mary's were overwhelmed by the trampling of iron-shod shoes before them, and behind them, and about them. They had gone only a mile or so from the cliff when the land sloped down in wide, shallow depression, where the ground was soft and wet. Mist lay there, pale, glimmering in the last rays of the sickle moon. The dark shapes of the orcs in front grew dim, and then were swallowed up. "Aye, steady now!" shouted Uruk from the rear. A sudden thought leaped into Pippin's mind, and he acted on it at once. He swerved aside to the right, and dived out of reach of his clutching guard, head first into the mist. He landed sprawling on the grass. "Halt!" yelled Uruk. There was for a moment turmoil and confusion. Pippin sprang up and ran, but the orcs were after him. Some suddenly loomed up right in front of him. No hope of escape, thought Pippin, but there is hope that I have left some of my own marks unspoilt on the wet ground. He groped with his two tied hands at his throat and unclasped the brooch at his cloak. Just as long arms and hard claws seized him, he let it fall. There I suppose it will lie until the end of time, he thought. I don't know why I did it. If the others have escaped, they've probably all gone with Frodo. A whip thong curled round his legs, and he stifled a cry. "Enough!" shouted Uruk, running up. "He's still got a long runway yet. Make 'em both run. Just use the whip as a reminder." "But that's not all," he snarled, turning to Pippin. "I shan't forget. Payment is only put off. Leg it!" Neither Pippin nor Merry remembered much of the later part of the journey. Evil dreams and evil waking were blended into a long tunnel of misery, with hope growing even fainter behind. Ever fainter behind. They ran and they ran, striving to keep up with pace set by the orcs, licked every now and again with the cruel thong cunningly handled. If they halted or stumbled, they were seized and dragged for some distance. The warmth of the orc draught had gone. Pippin felt cold and sick again. Suddenly, he fell face downward on the turf. Hard hands with rending nails gripped and lifted him. He was carried like a sack once more, and darkness grew about him, whether the darkness of another night or of blindness of his eyes, he could not tell. Dimly, he became aware of the voices clamoring. It seemed that many of the orcs were demanding a halt. Uruk was shouting. He felt himself flung to the ground, and he lay as he fell, till black dreams took him. But he did not long escape from pain. Soon the iron grip of merciless hands was on him again. For a long time he tossed and shaken, and then slowly the darkness gave way, and he came back to the waking world and found that it was morning. Orders were shouted, and he was thrown roughly onto the grass. There he lay for a while, fighting with despair. His head swam, but from the heat of his body he guessed that he had been given another draught. An orc stooped over him and flung him some bread over a strip of raw, dried flesh. He ate the stale, grey bread hungrily, but not the meat. He was famished, but not yet so famished as to eat flesh flung to him by an orc, the flesh he dared not to guess what creature. He sat up and looked about. Merry was not far away. They were by the banks of the swift, narrow river. Ahead mountains loomed. A tall peak was catching the first rays of the sun. A dark smudge of forest lay on the lower slopes before them. There was much shouting and debating among the orcs. A quarrel seemed on the point of breaking out again between the Northerners and the Isgardners. There were some pointing back way south, and some were pointing eastward. There were much shouting and debating. Some were pointing away south, and some were pointing eastwards. "Very well," said Uruk. "Leave them to me then. No killing, as I've told you before, but if you want to throw away what we've come all the way to get, throw it away. I'll look after it. Let the fighting get Uruk-hai to do the work as usual. If you're afraid of the whiteskins, run. Run! There's the forest," he shouted, pointing ahead. "Get to it. It's your best hope. Off you go, and quick, before I knock a few more heads off, and put some sense into the others." There was some cursing and scuffling, and then most of the Northerners broke away and dashed off. Over 100 of them, running wildly along the river towards the mountains. The hobbits were left with Isgarders, a grim dark band, 80 at least, of large, swart, slant-eyed orcs, with great bows and short, broad-bladed swords. A few of the larger and bolder Northerners remained with them. Now we'll deal with Krishnok, said Ugluk. But some of his own followers were looking uneasily southwards. I know, growled Ugluk. The cursed horse boys have got wind of us. But that's all your fault, Snagga. You and the others scouts ought to have your ears cut off. But we are the fighters. We'll feast on horseflesh yet, or something better. At that moment, Pippin saw why some of the troop had been pointing eastward. From that direction there now came hoarse cries, and there was Krishnok again, and at his back a couple score others like him, long-armed, crooked-legged orcs. They had a red eye painted on their shields. Ugluk stepped forward to meet them. So you've come back, he said. Thought better of it, eh? I've returned to see the orders are carried out and the prisoners safe, answered Krishnok. Indeed, said Ugluk. Waste of effort. I'll see that orders are carried out in my command. And what else did you come back for? You went in a hurry. Did you leave anything behind? I left a fool, snarled Krishnok. But there were some stout fellows with him that are too good to lose. I knew you'd lead them into a mess. I've come to help them. Splendid, laughed Ugluk. But unless you've got some guts for fighting, you've taken the wrong way. Lugsburg was your road. The Whiteskins are coming. What's happened to your precious Nazgul? Has he had another mount shot under him? Now, if you've brought him along, that might have been useful. The Nazgul or they make out. Nazgul, Nazgul, said Krishnok, shivering and licking his lips, as if the word had a foul taste that he savored painfully. You speak of what is deep beyond reach of your muddy dreams, Ugluk, he said. Nazgul, all they make out. All that they make out. One day you'll wish that you had not said that. Ape! He snarled fiercely. You ought to know that they are not the apple of the great eye, but the winged Nazgul. Not yet, not yet. He won't let them show themselves on the great river yet. Not too soon. They're for the war and other purposes. You seem to know a lot, said Ugluk. More than is good for you, I guess. Perhaps in the Lugsburg you might wonder how and why. But in the meantime, Uruk-hai of Isengard can do the dirty work as usual. Don't stand slavering there. Get your drabble together. The other swine are legging it to the forest. You'd better follow. Wouldn't get back to the great river alive. Right off the mark. Now, I'll be on your heels. The Isengarders seized Merry and Pippin again and slung them on their backs. Then the troops started off. Hour after hour they ran, pausing now and only again to sling the hobbits to fresh carriers. Either because they were quicker and hardier, or because some plan of Krishnok's, the Isengarders gradually passed through the orcs of Mordor, and Krishnok's folk closed in behind. Soon they were gaining also on the northerners' head. The forest began to draw nearer. Pippin was bruised and torn. His aching head was grated by the filthy jowl and hairy ear of the orc that held him. Immediately in front were bowed backs, and tough thick legs going up and down, unresting as if they were made of wire and horn. Beating out the nightmare seconds of an endless time. Beating out the nightmare seconds of an endless time. In the afternoon, Ugluk's troop overtook Northerners. They were flagging up the rays of the bright sun, winter sun shining in a pale, cool sky, though it was. Their heads were down and their tongues lolling out. Maggots, jeered the Isengarders. You're cooked. The Whiteskins will catch you and eat you. They're coming! A cry from Krishnok showed that it was not mere jest. Horsemen, riding very swiftly, had indeed been sighted still far behind, but gaining on the orcs, gaining on them like a tide over the flats of folk straying in a quicksand. The Isengarders began to run with redoubled pace that astonished Pippin. A terrific spurt, it seemed, for the end of the race. Then he saw that the sun was sinking, falling behind the misty mountains. Shadows reached over the land. The soldiers of Mordor lifted their heads and also began to put on speed. The forest was dark and close. Already they had passed a few outlying trees. The land was beginning to slope upwards, even more steeply, but the orcs did not halt. Both Ugluk and Krishnok shouted, spurring them on to the last effort. They will make it yet. They will escape, thought Pippin. And then he managed to twist his neck, so as though to glance with one eye over his shoulder. He saw that riders away eastward were already level with the orcs, galloping over the plain. The sunset gilded their spears and helmets, and glittered in their pale flowing hair. They were hemming the orcs in, preventing them from scattering, and driving them along the line of the river. He wondered very much what kind of folk they were. He wished now that he had learned more in Rivendell, and looked more at maps and things, but in those days the plans for the journey seemed to be in more competent hands, and he had never reckoned with being cut off from Gandalf, or from Strider, and even from Frodo. All that he could remember was about Rohan was that Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax, had come from that land. Why is there a period right there? Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax, had come from that land. That sounded hopeful as far as it went. But how will they know we are not orcs, he thought. I don't suppose they've ever heard hobbits down here. I suppose I ought to be glad that the beastly orcs look like being destroyed, but rather be saved myself. The chances that he and Merry would be killed together with their captors before the men of Rohan were ever... The chances were that he and Merry would be killed together with their captors before ever the men of Rohan were aware of them. Few of the riders appeared to be bowmen, skilled at shooting from a running horse. Riding swiftly into range, they shot arrows at the orcs My dyslexia is killing me right now. Riding swiftly into range, they shot arrows at the orcs that straggled behind, and several of them fell. Then the riders wheeled away out of the range of the answering bows of their enemies, who shot wildly, not daring to halt. I think my music stopped. Halt. Oh my god, Adam, I just read your whisper. What the fuck? That's crazy. That's really funny, though. That's fucked up, but it's really funny. Sorry for... Oh, no, don't be sorry, Viking. The occasional spawn between it shows that even if you had a rough week, your internal happiness has a place yet. It's wonderful to see. I hope so. I'm going through a lot of mood swings. I got my IUD taken out, so I've been struggling a bit with that. It's mostly what's been affecting me. It's been not great. This happened many times, and on one occasion arrows fell among the Isgarders. One of them, just in front of Pippin, stumbled and did not get up again. Night came down without the riders closing in for battle. Many orcs had fallen, but fully 200 remained. In the early darkness, the orcs came to a hillock. The eaves of the forest were very near, probably no more than 3 furlongs away, but they could not go on further. The horsemen had encircled them. A small band disobeyed Ugluk's command and ran on towards the forest, and only 3 returned. Well, here we are, sneered Grishnak. Fine leadership. I hope the great Ugluk will lead us out again. Put those halflings down, ordered Ugluk, taking no notice of Grishnak. You, Lugdush, get 2 others and stand guard over them. They are not to be killed, unless the filthy whiteskins break them. They are not to be killed. They are not to be killed unless the filthy whiteskins break through. Understand? Muff, thank you for following. As long as I'm alive, I want them. But they're not to cry out and they're not to be rescued. Bind their legs. The last part of the order was carried out mercilessly, but Pippin found that for the first time, he was close to Merry. The orcs were making a great deal of noise, shouting and clashing their weapons, and the hobbits managed to whisper together for a while. I don't think much of this, said Merry. I feel nearly done in. I don't think I could crawl away far, even if I was free. Lembas, whispered Pippin. Lembas, I've got some, have you? I don't think they've taken anything but our swords. Yes, I had a packet in my pocket, answered Merry, but it must be battered to crumbs. Anyway, I can't put my mouth in my pocket. You won't have to, But just then a savage kick warned Pippin that the noise had died down and the guards were watchful. The night was cold and still. All round the knoll on which the orcs were gathered, little watchfires sprang up, golden red in darkness, and a complete ring of them. They were within a long bowshot, but the riders did not show themselves against the light, and the orcs wasted many arrows shooting at the fires, until Uruk stopped them. The riders made no sound. Later in the night, when the moon came out of the mist, then occasionally they could be seen, shadowy shapes that glinted now again in the white light, as they moved in ceaseless patrol. They'll wait for the sun. They'll wait for the sun. Curse them, growled one of the guards. Why don't we get together and charge through? What's old Uruk think he's doing? I should like to know. I dare say you would, snarled Uruk, stepping up from behind. Meaning I don't think at all, eh? Curse you! You're as bad as the other rabble. The maggots and the apes of Lugsburgs. No good trying to charge with them. They'll just squeal and bolt. There are more than enough of these filthy horse boys to mop up our lot on the flat. There's only one thing those maggots can do. They can see like gimlets in the dark. But these white skins have got better night eyes than most men, from all I've heard. And don't forget their horses. They can see the night breeze, or so it's said. Still, there's one thing this fine fellow don't know. Mater and his lads are in the forest, and they should turn up any time now. Uruk's words were enough, apparently, to satisfy the Iceguarders, but the other orcs were both dispirited and rebellious. They posted a few watchers, but most of them lay on the ground, resting in the pleasant darkness. It did indeed become very dark again, for the moon passed westward into thick cloud, and Pippin could not see anything a few feet away. The fires brought no light in the hillock. The riders were not, however, content merely to wait for the dawn and let their enemies rest. A sudden outcry on the east side of the knoll showed that something was wrong. It seemed that some of the men had ridden in close, slipped off their horses, crawled to the edge of the camp and killed several orcs, and then faded away again. Uruk dashed off to stop the stampede. Pippin and Merry sat up. Their guards, Iceguarders, had gone with Uruk, but if the hobbits had any thought of escape, it was soon dashed. A long, hairy arm took each of them by the neck and drew them close together. Dimly they were aware of Grishnok's great head and hideous face between them. His foul breath was on their cheeks. He began to paw them and feel them. Pippin shuddered as hard, cold fingers groped down his back. "Well, my little ones," said Grishnok in a soft whisper, "enjoying your nice rest or not? A little awkwardly placed, perhaps, swords and whips on one side, nasty spears on the other. Little people should not meddle in affairs that are too big for them." His fingers continued to grope. There was a light like a pale but hot fire behind his eyes. The thought came suddenly into Pippin's mind, as if caught direct from the urgent thought of his enemy. Grishnok knows about the ring. He's looking for it. He's looking for it while Uruk was busy. He probably wants it for himself. Cold fear was in Pippin's heart, yet at the same time he was wondering what use he could make of Grishnok's desire. "I don't think you'll find it that way," he whispered. "It isn't easy to find." "Find it?" said Grishnok. His fingers stopped crawling and gripped Pippin's shoulder. "Find what? What are you talking about, little one?" For a moment Pippin was silent, then suddenly, in the darkness, made a noise in his throat. "Gulp, gulp." "Nothing, my precious," he added. The hobbits felt Grishnok's fingers twitch. "Oh-ho," hissed the goblin softly. "That's what he means, is it? Oh-ho. Very, very dangerous, my little ones." "Perhaps," said Merry, now alert and aware of Pippin's guess. "Perhaps, and not only for us. Still, you know your own business best. Do you want it or not? And what would you give for it?" "Do I want it? Do I want it?" said Grishnok, as if puzzled, but his arms were trembling. "What would I give for it? What do you mean?" "We mean," said Pippin, choosing his words carefully, "that it's no good groping in the dark.
We could save you time and trouble, but you must untie your legs first, or we'll do nothing and say nothing." "My dear tender little fools," hissed Grishnak. "Everything you have, everything you know, well, he got it out of you in due time. Everything. You wish there was more that you could tell to satisfy the questioner. Indeed you will, quite soon. We shan't hurry the inquiry. Oh dear, no. What do you think you've been kept alive for? My dear little fellows, please believe me when I say that it was not out of kindness. That's not even one of Ugluk's faults."
"I find it quite easy to believe," said Mary, "but you haven't got your prey home yet, and it doesn't seem to be going your way, whatever happens. If you come to Isengard, it won't be the great Grishnak that benefits. Saruman will take that he can find. If you want anything for yourself, now's the time to do a deal." Grishnak began to lose his temper. The name Saruman seemed especially to enrage him. Time was passing, and the disturbance was dying down. Ugluk or the Isengarders might return at any minute.
"Have you got it, either of you?" he snarled.
"Gollum, Gollum," said Pippin.
"Untie our legs," said Merry. They felt the orc's arms trembling violently. "Curse you, you little filthy vermin," he hissed. "Untie your legs. I'll untie every string in your bodies. Do you think I can't search you to the bones? Search you? I'll cut you both to quivering shreds. I don't need the help of your legs to get you away and have you all to myself."
Suddenly he seized them. The strength in his long arms and shoulders was terrifying. He tucked them one under each armpit and crushed them fiercely to his sides. A great stifling hand was clapped over each of their mouths. Then he sprang forward, stooping low. Quickly and silently he went until he came to the edge of the knoll. There, choosing a gap between the watchers, he passed like an evil shadow out into the night. Down the sloped way westward towards the river and flowed out of the forest. In that direction there was a wide open space with only one fire. Silent. You should totally get him, Viking. I would prefer a water femboy, this is true. Or some form of twink. My shoulder really hurts for some reason. After going a dozen yards, he halted, peering and listening. Nothing could be seen or heard. He crept slowly on, bent almost double. Then he squatted and listened again. Then he stood up, as if to risk a sudden dash. At that very moment, the dark form of the rider loomed up right in front of him. A horse snorted and reared. A man called out. Grishnak flung himself onto the ground flat, dragging the hobbits under him. Then he drew his sword. No doubt he meant to kill his captives, rather than allow them to escape or to be rescued. But it was his undoing. The sword rang faintly, and glinted a little in the light of the fire away to his left. An arrow came whistling out of the gloom. It was aimed with skill, or guided by fate, and pierced his right hand. He dropped the sword and shrieked. There was a quick beat of hooves, and even as Grishnak leaped and ran, he was ridden down and a spear passed through him. He gave a hideous shivering cry, and lay still. The hobbits remained flat on the ground as Grishnak had left them. Another horseman came riding swiftly to his comrade's aid. Whether because of some special keenness of sight, or because of other senses, the horse lifted and sprang lightly over them. But its rider did not see them, lying covered in their elven cloaks, too crushed for the moment, and too afraid to move.
Lend me some manners.
Rotating, thank you for following. At last Mary stirred and whispered softly, "So far so good, but how are we to avoid being spitted?" The answer came almost immediately. The cries of Grishnak had roused the orcs. From the yells and screeches that came the knoll, the hobbits guessed that their disappearance had been discovered. Ugluk was probably knocking off a few more heads. Then, suddenly, the answering cries of orc voices came from the right, outside the circle of watchfires, from the direction of the forest and the mountains. Malhur was apparently arrived and was attacking the besiegers.
There was the sound of galloping horses. The riders were drawing their ring close round the knoll, risking the orc arrows so as to prevent any sortie, while a company rode off to deal with the newcomers. Suddenly, Merry and Pippin realized that without moving they were now outside the circle. There was nothing between them and escape. "Now," said Merry, "if only we had our legs and hands free, we might get away. But I can't touch the knots, and I can't bite them." "No need to try," said Merry. "I was going to tell you. I've managed to free my hands. These loops are only left for show. You'd better have a bit of lembas first." He slipped the cords off his wrists and fished out a packet. The cakes were broken but good, still in their leaf wrappings. The hobbits each ate 2 or 3 pieces. The taste brought them the memory of their fair faces and laughter, and wholesome food in quiet days now far away. For a while they ate thoughtfully, sitting in the dark, heedless of the cries and sounds of battle nearby. Pippin was the first to come back to the present. "We must be off," he said. "Half a moment." Grishnok's sword was lying close at hand, but it was too heavy and clumsy for him to use. So he crawled forward, and finding the body of the goblin, he drew from its sheath a long, sharp knife. With this he quickly cut their bounds. "Now for it," he said. "We've warmed up a bit. Perhaps we shall be able to stand again and walk. In any case, we'd better start by crawling." They crawled. The turf was deep and yielding, and that helped them, but it seemed a long, slow business. They gave the watchfire a wide berth, and wormed their way forward bit by bit, until they came to the edge of the river, gurgling away in the black shadows under the deep banks. Then they looked back. The sounds had died away. Evidently Marver and his lads had been killed or driven off. The riders had returned to their silent, ominous vigil. It would not last much longer. The night was old. Already the night was old. In the east, which had remained unclouded, the sky was beginning to grow pale. "We must get under cover," said Pippin, "or we shall be seen. It will not be any comfort to us if these riders discover that we are not orcs after we are dead." He got up and stamped his feet. Those cords have been cut me like wires, but my feet are getting warm again. I could stagger on now. What about you, Merry?" Merry got up. "Yes," he said, "I can manage it. Lambus does put a heart into you. A more wholesome sort of feeling, too, than the heat of the orc draught. I wonder what it's made of. Better not to know, I expect. Let's get a drink of water and wash away the thought of it." "Not here. The banks are too steep," said Pippin. "Forward now." They turned and walked side by side slowly along the line of the river. Behind them the light grew in the east. As they walked, they compared notes, walking lightly in hobbit fashion, of things that had happened since their capture. No listener would have guessed from their words that they had suffered cruelly, and been in dire peril, going without hope towards torment or death. Or even now, as they knew well, they had little chance of ever finding friend or safety again. "You seem to have been doing well, Master Took," said Merry. "You will get almost a chapter in old Bilbo's book, if I ever get a chance to report to him. Good work, especially guessing that hairy villain's little game, and playing up to him. But I wonder if anyone will ever pick up your trail and find that brooch. I should hate to lose mine, but I am afraid yours is gone for good. I have to brush up my toes if I am to get level with you. Indeed, Cousin Brandybuck is going in front now. This is where he comes in. I don't suppose you have much notion where we are, but I spent my time at Rivendell rather better. We are walking west along the Entwash. The butt end of Misty Mountains is in the front, and Fangorn Forest." Even as he spoke, the dark edge of the forest loomed up straight before them. Night seemed to have taken refuge under its great trees, creeping away from the coming dawn. "Lead on, Master Brandybuck," said Pippin, "or lead back. We have been warned against Fangorn, but one so knowing will not have forgotten that." "I have not," answered Merry, "but the forest seems better to me, all the same, than turning back into the middle of a battle." He led the way under the huge branches of the trees. Old beyond guessing, they seemed. Great trailing beards of lichen hung from them, blowing and swaying in the breeze. Out of the shadows the hobbits peeped, gazing back down the slope, little furtive figures that in the dim light looked like elf children in deeps of time peering out the wild wood in wonder at their first dawn. Far over the great river in the brown land, leagues upon grey leagues away, the dawn came, red as flame. Loud rang the hunting horns to greet it. The riders of Rohan sprang suddenly to life. Horn answered horn again. Merry and Pippin heard, clear in the cold air, the neighing of war horses and the sudden singing of many men. The sun's limb was lifted, an arc of fire, above the margin of the world. Then, with a great cry, the riders charged from the east. The red light gleamed on mail and spear. The orcs yelled and shot all the arrows that remained to them. The hobbits saw several horsemen fall, but their line held up on the hill and over it, and wheeled round and charged again. Most of the raiders were left alive, that then broke and fled, this way and that, pursued one by one to the death. But one band, holding together in black wedge, drove forward resolutely in the direction of the forest. Straight up the slope they charged towards the watchers. Now they were drawing near, and it seemed certain that they would escape. They had already hewn down the 3 riders that barred their way. "We have watched too long," said Merry. "There's Ugluk. I don't want to meet him again." The hobbits turned and fled deep into the shadows of the wood. So it was that they did not see the last stand, when Ugluk was overtaken and brought to bay at the very edge of Fangorn. There he was slain at last by Eomer, and the 3rd Marshal of the Mark, who dismounted and fought him sword to sword. And over the wide fields and keen-eyed riders hunted down the few orcs that had escaped still had strength to fly. When they had laid their fallen comrades in a mound and had sung their praises, the riders made a great fire and scattered the ashes of their enemies. So ended the raid, and no news of it ever came back either to Mordor or to Isengard. But the smoke of the burning rose high to the heaven and was seen by many watchful eyes. We are now at chapter 4, Treebeard. How long have I been reading? Like an hour? I don't know. Shut up, Mark. This chapter is really... I like this chapter a lot. I think I've only been reading for like an hour, though. Can this be real? Visag, what's up? I have to pee, so I'm gonna go pee. So that means we'll be on a quick breather. If you're watching this as a YouTube VOD, thank you for joining us. In the future, I'm saying hello from the past. We are doing a live reading of Lord of the Rings. If you'd care to join us anytime we do these, we are live Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. We don't always read, but when we do, it's usually Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna go for a urinary break. Get a good urine in, you know what I'm saying? So I will go urinate, and then I will be back in just a couple minutes. I love when I catch you reading Lord of the Rings. I love it when you do too, Fuji. I always hope that you catch it. I started making my go live notifications say when I'm doing stuff, so hopefully that can help a little bit. Gonna go for work lurk. Get that work lurk. We have about 3 more chapters before you go. I think I can get through another chapter before it's time for us to go, if it's not horribly long. I think 2 chapters a day is relatively decent. I can get to chapter 5, I think. It's only another 30 pages. So we will do chapter 4 in just a moment. I will be right back. I'm just going to go pee and stretch because my shoulder is really hurting. So give me a moment, please. Thank you. Be right back.
Lend me some ass.
Okay. Daddy's home. I got apple juice. First time I found you. Did I tell you that the first time I found you, you were reading it and then have kept me since? Really? I didn't know that. That's crazy. Well, I'm glad, Fuji. That's so sweet. I need chapstick. Where is my chapstick? I also need to figure out how to timestamp for the YouTube VODs. Because, wow, my shoulder really hurts. I need to figure out how to timestamp for the YouTube VODs for this, because I feel really bad for the people who are just trying to watch me straight read, you know? Also, I need to fix my camera adjustment. It's a little weird today. Not so bad. Don't smell so bad today. Is there a chapstick redeem? No, but there probably should be. Oh, hey there. Hello. How do you have so many sanitizers might allow me to admire them? Most of them are fucking garbage. Actually, I only have 2 that are good. The Shintaro Kago one and my hand tattoo. The rest I did mostly myself, so they're like kind of fucked up. I do want to get back into tattooing and actually like get good at it though. Cause I was just a drunk teenager before. Why do I like apple juice all of a sudden? I used to fucking hate apple juice. I do not know what happened. Something has changed. The winds of Rohan have shifted. Okay. I just fast forward through the breaks. Well, there was that one YouTube... Dude, this made me so sad. There was that one YouTube VOD of me reading Lord of the Rings the first time we did it in a while the other day when we were finishing Fellowship, and made me so sad. For some reason it was like popping off in like algorithms, don't know why, but the watch retention was like 2 minutes because it was just like the beginning of stream, me just bantering and stuff. So now I cut the VODs so that it just goes straight into reading in case that ever happens again, which it probably won't. But it's like, God, I hate everything. YouTube's hard. I just need to start making dedicated videos for YouTube. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Okay. Let's get back into this. May have reverted to a childlike state. This is true. Alright. I'm gonna try to get through chapter 4, but it's like 30 pages. And I was supposed to leave in like 10 minutes. So I don't think that's gonna happen, but I can do my best. Wasn't that the audio issue too? Yes. There was also an audio issue because I got copyright blocked instead of striked. It's also a good time to note that the Lord of the Rings reading streams will never be monetized because I used the Lord of the Rings music. So bear in mind that one day these will mean nothing. Also, I think we got to 710 subscribers. Something like that. In the last couple days on YouTube, so that's looking good. 300 to go. Let's cough, professional YouTuber. Let me know if you need help. Haha. Is that what the check mark means? I didn't know what that was. I'm not used to YouTube chat. YouTube is like weird for me because I don't know. I'm not a good editor, so it takes me a long time to edit videos, but I have lots of ideas. I don't know. I'm working on this really long vlog right now because I went to Mexico and I recorded everything, which was stupid. So once that's done, I'm going to move on to all the other videos I want to do. You can get this check mark at 100K. What? Holy shit. You're doing good for yourself then. Damn, dude. Well, welcome. Oh, man. I feel pressured now.
I'm just a lowly little plebe in the dust. Good to have a goal. I will get monetized by the end of this year, so help me God. So help me God. We're so close. We got all the watch hours. We just need the subbies. 100k, no sweat, dude. Oh my God. If only. Okay. Ahem. We must resume. Now you're cool. You're cool too. Fuck. Okay. We get back into the reading. Chug some apple J. I should have been eating an edible before doing this. I could probably go for fucking year. I could probably read out loud for years if I was eddied up. Told both my friends about your YouTube channel. I do what I can. Thank you, Dag. I appreciate that. It's not great. It's not looking good. It's just fucking live shit and like bad attempts at videos. I'm still most proud of the Kappa video, and nobody gives a fuck about that, so genuinely appreciate you. Aww. I told my grandma. Thanks, Jake. Okay. Okay? Alright. I love the Kappa video. I love the Kappa video, too. I should remake it once I get better at editing. It'd probably do better. I should probably remake the thumbnails, too. I'll just remake the whole fucking thing. Whatever. Okay. Chapter 4. Treebeard. Meanwhile, the hobbits went with as much speed as the dark and tangled forest allowed, following the line of the running stream, westward and up towards the slopes of the mountains, deeper and deeper into Fanghorn. Slowly, their fear of the orcs died away, and their pace slackened. A queer stifling feeling came over them, as if the air was too thin or too scanty for breathing. At last, Merry halted. "We can't go on like this," he panted. "I want some air." "Let's have a drink, at any rate," said Pippin. "I'm parched." He clambered onto a great tree root and wound down into the stream, and stooping drew up some water into cupped hands. It was clear and cold, and he took many draughts. Merry followed him. The water refreshed them and seemed to cheer their hearts. For a while they sat together on the brink of the stream, dabbling their sore feet and legs, and peering round at the trees that stood silently about them, rank upon rank, until they faded away into grey twilight in every direction. "I suppose you haven't lost us already," said Pippin, leaning back against a great tree trunk. "We can at least follow the course of this stream, the Entwash or whatever you call it, and get out again if we came, the way we came." "We could, if our legs would do it," said Merry, "and if we could breathe properly." "Yes, it is all very dim and stuffy in there," said Pippin. "It reminds me somehow of the old room at the great place the Tooks away back in the Smeals, I don't know how to say that, at Tooksboro, a huge place, where the furniture had never been moved or changed for generations. They say the old Took lived in it year after year, while he and the room got older and shabbier together. It has never been changed since he died, a century ago. The old Gerontius, the old Gerontius, and my great-great-great-grandfather, that puts us back a bit. But it has nothing to do with old feelings of this wood. Look at all those weeping, trailing beards and whiskers of lichen, and most of the trees seem to be half covered in ragged dry leaves that have never fallen. Untidy. Can't imagine what spring would look like here, if it ever comes. Still less a spring cleaning." "But the sun at any rate must peep in sometimes," said Merry. Does not look or feel at all like Bilbo's description of Mirkwood. That was all dark and black, and the home of dark black things. This is just dim and frightfully tree-ish. You can't imagine animals living here at all, or staying for long." "No, nor hobbits," said Pippin. "I don't like the thought of trying to get through it either. Nothing to eat for 100 miles, I should guess. How are our supplies?" "Low," said Merry. "We ran off with nothing but a couple of spare packs of lembas, and left everything else behind." They looked at what remained of the elven cakes, broken fragments for about 5 meager days. That was all. "Not a wrap or a blanket," said Merry. "Shall be cold tonight, whichever way we go." "Well, we'd better decide on the way now," said Pippin. "The morning must be getting on."
Just then they became aware of the yellow light that had appeared some way further on into the woods. Shafts of sunlight seemed suddenly to have pierced the forest roof. "Hello," said Mary. "The sun must have run into a cloud while we've been under these trees, and now she has run out again, or else she has climbed high enough to look down through some opening. It isn't far. Let's go and investigate." They found it was further than they thought. The ground was rising steeply still and was becoming uneasily stony. Increasingly stony. The light grew broader as they went on, and soon they saw that there was a rock wall before them, the side of a hill, or the abrupt end of some long route thrust out by distant mountains. Dreamsever? I can't see that far. Thank you for following. The light grew broader as they went on, and soon they saw that there was a rock wall before them, the side of a hill, or the abrupt end of some long route thrust out by distant mountains. No trees grew on it, and the sun was falling full on its stony face. The twigs of the trees at its foot were stretched out stiff and still, as if reaching out to the warmth. Where all had looked so shabby and gray before, the wood now gleamed with rich browns, and with the smooth black grays of bark like polished leather. The boles of the trees glowed with a soft green, like young grass. Early spring or a fleeting vision of it was about them. In the face of the stony wall there was something like a stair, natural perhaps, made by weathering and splitting of rock, for it was rough and uneven. Higher up, almost level with the tops of forest trees, there was a shelf under a cliff. Nothing grew there but a few grasses and weeds at its edge, and an old stump of a tree with only 2 bent branches left. It looked almost like a figure of some gnarled old man standing there, blinking in the morning light. "Up we go," said Mary joyfully. Now for a breath of air and a sight of the land." They climbed and scrambled up the rock. If the stair had been made, it was for bigger feet and longer legs than theirs. They were too eager to be surprised by the remarkable way in which the cuts and sores of their captivity had healed and their vigor had returned. They came at length to the edge of the shelf, almost to the feet of the old stump. Then they sprang up and turned round with their backs up the hills, breathing deep and looking out eastward. They saw that they had only come some 3 or 4 miles into the forest. The heads of the trees marched down the slopes towards the plain. There, near the fringe of the forest, tall spires of curling black smoke went up, wavering and floating towards them. "The wind's changing," said Mary. "It's turned east again. It feels cool up here." "Yes," said Pippin. "I'm afraid there's only passing gleam, and will all go grey again. What a pity. The shaggy old forest looks so different in the sunlight. I almost felt I liked the place." "Almost felt like you liked the forest. That's good. It's uncommonly kind of you," said a strange voice. "Turn round." Oh my god. Okay. Wrong voices, so sorry. "Turn round and let me have a look at your faces. I almost feel like I dislike you both, but do not let us be hasty. Turn round." A large knob-knuckled hand was laid on each of their shoulders, and they were twisted round, gently but irresistibly, and then 2 great arms lifted them up. They found that they were looking at the most extraordinary face. It belonged to a large man-like, almost troll-like figure, at least 14 foot high, very sturdy, with a tall head and hardly any neck. Whether it was clad in stuff like green and grey bark, or whether it was hide, it was difficult to say. At any rate, the arms, at a short distance from the trunk, were not wrinkled, but each covered with brown, smooth skin. Large feet had 7 toes each. The lower part of the long face was covered in a sweeping grey beard, bushy, almost twiggy at the roots, thin and mossy at the ends. But at the moment the hobbits noted little but the eyes. But at the moment the hobbits noted little but the eyes. These deep eyes were now surveying them, slow and solemn, but were very penetrating. They were brown, shot with green light. Often afterwards, Pippin tried to describe his first impression of them. One felt as if there was an enormous well behind them, filled up with ages of memory and long, slow, steady thinking. But their surface was sparkling with the present, like sun shimmering on the outer leaves of a vast tree, or the ripples of a very deep lake. I don't know, but it felt like something that grew in the ground, asleep, you might say, or just feeling itself something between root tip and leaf tip, between deep earth and sky, had suddenly waked up, and was considering you with the same slow care that it had given its own inside affairs for endless years. Murmured the voice, a deep voice like a very deep woodwind instrument. Very odd indeed. Do not be hasty, that is my motto. But if I had seen you before I had heard your voices, I liked them. Nice little voices. They reminded me of something I cannot remember. If I had seen you before I heard you, I should have just trodden on you, taking you for little orcs, and found out my mistake afterwards. Very odd you are indeed, root and twig, very odd. Pippin, though still amazed, no longer felt afraid. Under those eyes he felt a curious suspense, but not fear. Please, he said, who are you, and what are you? A queer look came into the old eyes, a kind of weariness. The deep wells were covered over. No, answered the voice. Well, I am an Ent, or that's what they call me. Yes, Ent is the word. The Ent I am, you might say, in your manner of speaking. Fanghorn is my name according to some. Treebeard others make it. Treebeard will do. An Ent, said Mary. What's that? But what do you call yourself? What's your real name? Who now? Replied Treebeard. Who? Now that would be telling, not so hasty. And I am doing the asking. You are in my country. What are you, I wonder? I cannot place you. You do not seem to come to the old lists that I learned when I was young. But that was a long, long time ago, and they may have made new lists. Let me see. How did it go? Learn now the lore of living creatures. First name the four, the free peoples. Eldest of all the elf children, dwarf of the delver, dark are his houses. Enter the earthborn, old as the mountains. Man of the mortal, master of horses. Beaver the builder, buck the leaper. Bear be hunter, boar the fighter. Hound is hungry, hare is fearful. Eagle and eyrie, ox in pasture. Hot horn crown, hawk is swiftest. Swan the whitest, serpent coldest. How did it go? Room tum, room tum, room tum tum. It was a long list, but anyway, you do not seem to fit in anywhere. We always seem to have got left out of the old lists and the old stories, said Mary. But we've been about for quite a long time. We're hobbits. Why not make a new line, said Pippin. Half-grown hobbits, the hole dwellers. Put us in amongst the four, next to man, the big people, and you've got it. Not bad, said Treebeard. That would do. You live in holes, eh? That sounds very right and proper. Who calls you hobbits, though? It does not sound elvish to me. Elves made all the old words. They began it. Nobody else calls us hobbits. We call ourselves that, said Pippin. Come now, not so hasty. You call yourselves hobbits, but you should not go telling just anybody. You'll be letting out your own right names if you're not careful. We aren't careful about that, said Mary. As a matter of fact, I'm a Brandybuck. Meriadoc Brandybuck, though most people just call me Mary. And I'm a Took, Peregrine Took, but I'm generally called Pippin, or even Pip. But you are hasty folk, I see, said Treebeard. I'm honored by your confidence, but you should not be too free all at once. There are Ents and Ents, you know. Or there are Ents and things that look like Ents, but ain't, as you might say. I'll call you Mary and Pippin, if you please. Nice names. For I'm not going to tell you my name, not yet at any rate. A queer, half-knowing, half-humorous look came with green flicker into his eyes. For one thing, it would take a long while. For one thing, it would take a long while. My name is growing of all time, and I've lived a very long, long time. So my name is like a story. Real names tell you the story of things they belong to in my language, and the old Entish, as you might say. It is a lovely language, but it takes very long time to say anything in it, because we do not say anything in it, unless it is worth taking a long time to say, and to listen to. But now, the eyes became very bright and present, seeming to grow smaller and almost sharp. What is going on? What are you doing in it all? I can see and hear and smell and feel a great deal from this ala ala rumba kamada linder barume. Excuse me, that is part of my name for it. I do not know the word in the outside languages you know, the thing we are on, where I stand and look out on fine mornings, and think about the sun, and the grass beyond the wood, and the horses and the clouds, and the unfolding of the world. What is going on? What is Gandalf up to? And these Bararum, they make deep rumbling noise like a discord on great organ. These orcs and young Sauermen down in Isengard. I like news, but not too quick now. There's quite a lot going on, said Merry. Even if we tried to be quick, it would take a long time to tell. But you told us not to be hasty. Ought we to tell you anything so soon? Would you think it rude if we asked what was going on to do with us, and which side you are on? And did you know Gandalf? Yes, I do know him, the only wizard that really cares about trees, said Treebeard. Do you know him? Yes, said Pippin sadly. We did. He was a great friend, and he was our guide. But then I can answer your other questions, said Treebeard. I am not going to do anything with you, not if you mean by do something to you, without your leave. We might do some things together. I don't know about sides. I go my way, but your way may go along with mine for a while. But you speak of Master Gandalf as if he was in a story that had come to an end. Yes, we do, said Pippin sadly. The story seems to be going on, but I am afraid Gandalf has fallen out of it. Oh, come now, said Treebeard. Well. He paused, looking long at the hobbits. Well. Do not know what to say. Come now. If you would like to hear more, said Merry, we will tell you, but it will take some time. Wouldn't you like to put us down? Couldn't we sit here together in the sun while it lasts? You must be getting tired of holding us up. Tired. No, I am not tired. I do not easily get tired, and I do not sit down. I'm not very, bendable. But there, the sun is going in. Let us leave this. Did you say what you call it? Hill, suggested Pippin. Shelf? Step, suggested Merry. Treebeard repeated the words thoughtfully. Hill. Yes, that was it. But it is a hasty word for a thing that has stood here ever since the part of the world was shaped. Never mind, let us leave it and go. Where shall we go? Asked Merry. To my home or one of my homes, answered Treebeard. Is it far? I do not know. You might call it far, perhaps, but what does that matter? Well, you see, we have lost all our belongings, said Merry. We only have a little food. Oh, You need not trouble about that, said Treebeard. I can give you a drink that will keep you green and growing for a long, long while. If we decide to part company, I can set you down outside my country at any point you choose. Let us go. Holding the hobbits gently but firmly, in one of the crooks of each arm, Treebeard lifted up first one large foot and then the other, and moved them to the edge of the shelf. The root-like toes grasped the rocks. Then carefully and solemnly, he stalked down from step to step, and reached the floor of the forest. At once he set off with long, deliberate strides through the trees, deeper and deeper into the wood, never far from the stream, climbing steadily up towards the slopes of the mountains. Many of the trees seemed asleep, or as unaware of him as any other creature that had merely passed by. But some quivered, and some raised up their branches above his head as he approached. After a while, he talked to himself in a long running stream of musical sounds. The hobbits were silent for some time. They felt, oddly enough, safe and comfortable, and they had a great deal to think of wonder about. At last Pippin ventured to speak again. "Please, Treebeard," he said, "could I ask you something? Why did Celeborn warn against your forest? Told us not to risk getting entangled in it."
Did he now?" rumbled Treebeard.
"Might have said much the same if you had been going the other way. Do not risk getting entangled in the woods of Lorien Lorien. That is what the elves used to call it, but now it'd make the name shorter. Lothlorien, they call it. Perhaps they are right. Maybe it is fading, not growing. The land of the valley of singing gold that it was, once upon a time. Now it is the dream flower. Ah well, but it is a queer place, not for just any to venture in. I am surprised that you ever got out, but much more surprised that you ever got in. It has not happened to strangers for many a year. It is a queer land. And so is this. Folks have come to grief here. Aye, they have, to grief. Dornan, Malin Nornelian Ornemalin, he hummed to himself. They are falling rather behind in the world there, I guess, he said. Neither this country nor anything else outside the Golden Wood is what Celeborn was young. Still, there's an appendix marker. See appendix F under Ent. Where's the appendix in this book? There's no appendix in this copy. Whatever. Still, that is what they used to say. Things have changed, but it's still true in places. Scorch, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Drink lots of water, please. I don't know what a kappa is. A kappa is a creature of Japanese lore that I've become very fascinated with over the years. That will try to steal your soul through your butthole, and they are defeatable, thankfully, but you have to trick them in many ways to do so. They will drown you. What do you mean, said Pippin. What is true? The trees in the end, said Treebeard. I do not understand all that goes on myself, so I cannot explain it to you. Some of us are still true Ents and lively enough in our fashion, but many are growing sleepy, going tree-ish, as you might say. Most of the trees are just trees, of course, but many are half awake. Some are quite wide awake, and a few are, well, getting Entish. That is going on all the time. When that happens to a tree, you will find that some have bad hearts. Nothing to do with their wood, I do not mean that. Why, I knew some good old willows down the Endwash gone long ago, alas. They were quite hollow, indeed they were falling all to pieces, but as quiet and as sweet-spoken as a young leaf. Then there are some trees in the valleys under the mountains, sound as a bell, and bad right through. Sort of thing seems to spread. Used to be some very dangerous parts in the country. There are still some very black patches. Like the old forest away to the north, do you mean? Asked Mary. Aye, something like that, but much worse. I do not doubt there is some shadow of great darkness laying there still away north, and bad memories are handed down. But there are hollow dales in this land where the darkness has never been lifted and the trees are older than I am. Still, we do what we can. We keep off strangers and foolhardy, and we train and we teach. We walk and we weed. We are tree herds, we old Ents. Few enough of us are left now. Sheep get like shepherd, and shepherds like sheep, it is said. But slowly, and neither have long in the world. It is quicker and closer with trees and Ents, and they walk down the ages together. For Ents are more like elves, less interested in themselves than men are, and better at getting inside other things. Yet again, Ents are more like men, more changeable than elves are, and quicker at taking the color of the outside, you might say. Or better than both, for they are steadier and keep their minds on things longer. Some of my kin look just like trees now, and need something great to rouse them, and they speak only in whispers. But some of my trees are limbless, and many can talk to me. Elves began it, of course, waking trees up and teaching them to speak and learning their tree talk. They always wished to talk to everything, the old elves did. But then the great darkness came, and they passed away over the sea, or fled into far valleys, and hid themselves, and made songs about the days that would never come again. Never again. Aye, aye, there was one wood once upon a time, from here to the mountains of Loon, and this was just the east end. Those were the broad days, time when I could walk and sing all day and hear no more than the echo of my own voice in the hollow hills. The woods were like the woods of Lothlorien, only thicker, stronger, younger. And the smell of the air. I used to spend a week just breathing. Treebeard fell silent, striding along, and yet making hardly a sound with his great feet. Then he began to hum again, and passed into a murmuring chant. Gradually the hobbits became aware that he was chanting to them. In the willow meads of Tazarinian I walked in the spring. Ah, the sight and smell of the spring in non-Tazarian. And said that was good. And I said that was good. I wandered in summer in the elm woods of Osiriand. Ah, the light and the music in the summer by the 7 rivers of Osir. And I thought that was best. To the beaches of Neldareth I came to the autumn. Ah, the gold and the red and the sighing of the leaves in the autumn in Tarnoth Neldar. It was more than my desire. To the pine trees upon the highland of Dorthonion I climbed the winter. Ah, the wind and the whiteness of the black branches of winter upon Orad Nathon. My voice went up and sang in the sky, and now all those lands lie under the wave, and I walk in Barona, in Taramorna, and in Aldalom, in my own land, in the country of Fanghorn, where the roots are long, and the years lie thicker than the leaves, in Taramornalom. He ended, and strode on silently, and in all the wood, as far as the ear could reach, there was not a sound. The day waned, and dusk was twinned about the boles of the trees. At last the hobbits saw, rising dimly before them, a steep dark land. They had come to the feet of the mountains, and to the green roots of Methedrus. Down the hillside the young Entwash, leaping from its springs high above, ran noisily from step to meet them. On the right of the stream there was a long slope, clad with grass, now grey in the twilight. No trees grew there, and it was open to the sky. Stars were shining already in the lakes between the shores of cloud. Treebeard strode up the slope, hardly slackening. There was no spaces in this sentence. At all. There's no spaces in this sentence. Okay. Treebeard strode up the slope, hardly slackening his pace. Suddenly before them the hobbits saw a wide opening. 2 great trees stood there, and on either side, like living gate posts, but there was no gate save their crossing and interwoven boughs. As the old Ent approached, the trees lifted up their branches, and all their leaves quivered and rustled, for there were evergreen trees, and their leaves were dark and polished, and gleamed in the twilight. Beyond them was a wide level space, as though the floor was a great hall had been cut in the side of the hill. On either hand the walls sloped upwards, until they were 50 feet high or more, and along each wall stood the aisle of trees that also increased the height as they marched inwards. At the far end the rock wall was sheer, but at the bottom it had been hollowed back in a shallow bay with an arched roof. The only roof of the hall, save the branches of the trees, which at the inner end overshadowed all the ground, leaving only a broad open path in the middle. A little stream escaped from the springs above, and leaving the main water, fell trickling down the sheer face of the wall, pouring in silver drops like a fine curtain in front of an arched bay. The water was gathered again in a stone basin at the floor between the trees, and thence it spilled and flowed away beside the open path, out to rejoin the Entwash in its journey through the forest. Here we are, said Treebeard, breaking his long silence. Brought you about 70,000 Ent strides, but now that we come in the measurement of your land, I do not know. Anyhow, we are near the roots of the last mountain. Part of the name this place might be Welling Hall if it were turned into your language. I like it. We will stay here tonight. I love Treebeard. He's so cool.
He set them down on the grass between the aisles of the trees, and they followed him towards the great ark. The hobbits now noticed that he walked his knees hardly bent, but his legs opened in a great stride. He planted his big toes, as they were indeed big and very broad, on the ground first, before any other part of his feet. For a moment Treebeard stood under the rain of the falling spring, and took a deep breath. Then he laughed, and passed inside. A great stone table stood there, but no chairs. At the back of the bay it was already quite dark. Treebeard lifted 2 great vessels and stood them on the table. They seemed to be filled with water, but he held his hands over them, and immediately they began to glow. One with a golden, another with a rich green light, and the blending of the 2 lights lit the bay, as if the sun of summer was shining through a roof of young leaves. Looking back, the hobbits saw that the trees in the court had also begun to glow, faintly at first, but steadily quickening, until every leaf was edged with light, some green, some gold, some red as copper, while the tree trunks looked like pillars molded out of luminous stone. Well, now we can talk again," said Treebeard. "You are thirsty, I expect. Perhaps you are also tired. Drink this." He went back to the back of the bay, and then they saw several tall stone jars stood there, with heavy lids. He removed one of the lids and dipped in a great ladle, and with it filled 3 bowls, 1 very large bowl and 2 smaller ones. "This is an ent house," he said. "There are no seats, I fear, but you may sit on the table." Picking up the hobbits, he set them on the great stone slab, 6 feet above the ground, and there they sat, dangling their legs and drinking in sips. The drink was like water, indeed very like the taste of the draughts that they had drunk from the ent wash near the borders of the forest, and that there was some scent or savour in it which they could not describe. It was faint, but it reminded them of the smell of distant wood borne from afar by a cool breeze at night. The effects of the draught began at the toes, and rose steadily through every limb, bringing refreshment and vigour as it coursed upwards, right to the tips of the hair. Indeed, the hobbits felt that the hair on their heads was actually standing up, waving and curling and growling. As for Treebeard, he laved his feet in the basin beyond the arch, and then he drained his bowl in one draught, one long, slow draught. The hobbits thought he would never stop. At last he set his bowl down again. "Ah," he sighed. Now we can talk easier. You can sit on the floor, and I will lie down. That will prevent this drink from rising to my head and sending me to sleep." "What?" On the right side of the bay there was a great bed on low legs, not more than a couple feet high, covered in deep dried grass and bracken. Treebeard lowered himself slowly onto this, with only the slightest sign of bending at his middle, until he lay at full length with his arms behind his head, looking up at the ceiling, upon which lights were flickering, like the play of leaves in the sunshine. Merry and Pippin sat beside him on pillows of grass. "Now tell me your tale, and do not hurry," said Treebeard. The hobbits began to tell them the story of their adventures ever since they left Hobbiton. They followed no very clear order, for they interrupted one another continually, and Treebeard often stopped the speaker and went back to some earlier point, or jumped forward asking questions about later events. They said nothing whatever about the ring, and did not tell him why they set out or where they were going to, and he did not ask for any reasons. He was immensely interested in everything, in the Black Riders, in Elrond, in Rivendell, in the Old Forest, and Tom Bombadil, in the mines of Moria, and in Lothlorien and Galadriel. He made them describe the Shire and its country over and over again. He said an odd thing at this point. "You never seen any, ents round there, do you?" he asked. "Well, not ents, entwives, I should say, really." "Hi, Joseph, how you doing?" "Entwives," said Pippin. "Are they like you at all?" "Yes, well, no. Do not really know now," said Treebeard, thoughtfully. "But they would like your country, so I just wondered." Treebeard was, however, especially interested in everything that concerned Gandalf, and most interested in all of Sauron's doings. The hobbits regretted very much that they knew so little about them. Only a rather vague report by Sam and Gandalf had told the council, and they were clear at any rate that Ugluk and his troop had came from Isengard and spoke of Sauron as their master. Said Treebeard, when at last their story had wound and wandered down to the battle of the Orc and the Riders of Rohan. "Well, that is a bundle of news and no mistake.
You have not told me all, no indeed, not long by a long way. I do not doubt that you are doing as Gandalf would wish. There is something very big going on that I can see, and what it is maybe I shall learn in good time, or in bad time, by root and twig. But it is a strange business. Upsprout a little folk that are not in the old lists, and behold, the 9 forgotten riders reappear to hunt them, and Gandalf takes on a great journey, and Galadriel harbours them in Carscalhon, and orcs pursue them down the leagues of the Wilderland. Indeed, they seem to be caught up in a great storm, and I hope they weather it. And what about yourself? Asked Merry. I'm not troubled with the great wars, said Treebeard. They mostly concern elves and men. That is the business of wizards. Wizards are always troubled about the future. I do not like worrying about the future. I am not altogether on anybody's side, because nobody is altogether on my side, if you understand me. Nobody cares for the woods as I care for them, not even the elves nowadays. Still, I take more kindly to elves than to others. It was the elves that cured... What the fuck is happening to this book? The print keeps changing and it's freaking me out. It was the elves that cured us of dumbness long ago, and that was a great gift that cannot be forgotten, though our ways have parted since. There are some things, of course, whose side I am altogether not on. I am against them altogether. These Bararum, he again made a deep rumble of disgust. These orcs and their masters. I used to be anxious when the shadow lay on Mirkwood, but when it removed to Mordor, I did not trouble for a while. Mordor is a long way away, but it seems that the wind is settling east, and the withering of all wood may be drawing near. There is not that of an old Ent can do now but hold back that storm. He must weather it or crack. But Saruman now, Saruman is a neighbor. I cannot overlook him. I must do something, I suppose. I have often wondered lately what I should do about Saruman. Who is Saruman? Asked Pippin. Do you know anything about his history? Saruman is a wizard, answered Treebeard. More than that, I cannot say. I do not know the history of wizards. They appeared first after the great ships came over the sea. But if they came with the ships, I can never tell. Saruman was reckoned great among them, I believe. He gave up wandering about and minding the affairs of men and elves some time ago. You would call it a very long time ago. He settled down at Agranost, or Isengard as the men of Rohan call it. He was very quiet to begin with, but his fume began to grow. He was chosen to be the head of the White Council, they say, but that did not turn out too well. I wonder now if even Saruman is not turning to evil ways. But at any rate, he used to give no trouble to his neighbors. I used to talk to him. There was a time where he was always walking about my woods. He was polite in those days, always asking my leave, at least when he met me, and always eager to listen. I told him many things that he would never have found out by himself, but he never repaid me in any like kind. I cannot remember that he ever told me anything. And he got more and more like that. His face, as I remembered it, I have not seen for many a day, become like windows in a stone wall, windows with shutters inside. I think I now understand what he is up to. He's plotting to become a power. He has a mind of metal and wheels, and he does not care for growing things except as far as they serve him for the moment. And now it is clear that he is a black traitor. He is taken up with the foul folk and the orcs. With the orcs. Worse than that, he has been doing something to them, something dangerous. For these Isengarders are more like wicked men. It is the mark of evil things that came in the great darkness that they cannot abide the sun, but Saruman's orcs can endure it, even if they hate it. I wonder what he has done. Are they men he has ruined, or has he blended the races of orcs and men? That would be a black evil. Treebeard rumbled for a moment as if he were pronouncing some deep subterranean Entist malediction. Some time ago I began to wonder how orcs dared to pass through my woods so freely, he went on. Only lately did I guess Saruman was to blame, and not long ago that he'd been spying out all the ways and discovering my secrets. He and his foul folk are making havoc now. Down on the borders they are felling trees, good trees. Some of the trees they cut down or leave to rot, orc mischief that, but most are hewn and carried off and feed the forest fires of Orthanc. There is always smoke rising from Isengard these days. Curse him, root and branch. Many of those trees were my friends, creatures I had known from the nut and acorn. Many had voices of their own that are lost now forever. There are wastes of stump and bramble where once there were singing groves. I have been idle. I have let things slip. It must stop. Treebeard raised himself from his bed with a jerk, stood up, and thumped his hand on the table. The vessels of light trembled and sent up 2 jets of flame. There was a flicker like green fire in his eyes, and his beard stood out stiff as a great besom. I don't know what that is. I will stop it, he boomed, and you shall come with me. You may be able to help me. You will be helping your own friends that way, too, for if Sauron was not checked, Rohan and Gondor will have an enemy behind as well as in front. Our roads go together. To Isengard. Well, we will come with you, said Merry. We will do what we can. Yes, said Pippin. I should like to see the White Hand overthrown. I should like to be there, even if I could not be of much use. I shall never forget Ugluk and the crossing of Rohan. Good, good, said Treebeard. But I spoke hastily. We must not be hasty. I have become too hot. I must cool myself and think, for it is easier to shout stop than to do it. He strode to the archway and stood for some time under the falling rain of the spring. Then he laughed and shook himself, and wherever the drops of water fell glittering from him to the ground, they glinted like red and green sparks. He came back and laid himself in his bed again and was silent. After some time, the hobbits heard him murmuring again. He seemed to be counting on his fingers. Fanghorn, Finglas, Foundriff. Aye, aye, he sighed. The trouble is that there are only so few of us left, he said, turning down to the hobbits. Only 3 remain of the first Ents that walked the woods before darkness. Only myself, Fanghorn, and Finglas, and Faldriff. To give their elvish names, you may call them Leaf-Flock, Skinbark, if you like that better. And of us 3, Leaf-Flock and Skinbark are not much use for this business. Leaf-Flock has grown sleepy, almost tree-ish, as you might say. He has taken to standing by himself half asleep all through the summer with the deep grass of the meadows round his knees. Covered with leafy hair he is. He used to rouse up in winter, but of late he has been too drowsy to walk far even then. Skinbark lived on the mountain slopes west of Isengard. That is where worst folk trouble has been. He was wounded by the orcs, and many of his folk and his tree herds have been murdered and destroyed. He has gone up to high places among the birches that he loves best, and he will not come down. Still, I dare say I could get them together, a fair company of our younger folks, if I could make them understand the need, if I could rouse them. We are not a hasty folk. What a pity there are so few of us. Why are there so few when you've lived in this country so long? Asked Pipton. Have a great many died? Oh no, said Treebeard. None have died from inside, as you might say. Some have fallen in evil chances of long years, of course, and more have grown tree-ish. But there are never many of us, and we have not increased. There have been no entings, no children, as you would say, not for a terrible long count of years. You see, we lost the Entwives. How very sad, said Pippin. How was it that they all died? They did not die, said Treebeard. I never said died. We lost them, I said. We lost them, and we cannot find them. He sighed. I thought most folks knew that. There were songs about the hunt of Ents for the Entwives sung among elves and men from Mirkwood to Gondor. They cannot be quite forgotten. Well, I am afraid the songs have not come west over the mountains to the Shire, said Merry. Won't you tell us some more, or sing us one of the songs? Yes, I will indeed, said Treebeard, seeming pleased with the request. But I cannot tell it properly, only in short, and then we must end our talk. Tomorrow we have councils to call, and work to do, and maybe a journey to begin. Go to sleep. Let the reading take you to bed. It is rather a strange and sad story, he went on after a pause. When the world was young and the woods were wide and wild, Ents and the Entwives. There were Ent maidens then. Ah, the loveliness of Fimbrethil, and the Wandlim, and the light-footed, Wandlim the light-footed, in the days of our youth. They walked together and they housed together, but our hearts did not go on growing the same way. The Ents gave their love to things that they met in the world, and the Entwives gave their thought to other things. For the Ents loved the great trees, and the wild woods, and the slopes of the high hills, and they drank of the mountain streams, and ate only such fruit as the trees let fall in their path, and they learned of the elves and spoke with the trees. But the Entwives gave their minds to the lesser trees, and to the meads and sunshine beyond the feet of the forests. They saw the sloe in the thicket, and the wild apple and cherry blossoming in spring, and the green herbs in the waterlands in summer, and the seeding grasses in the autumn fields. They did not desire to speak with these things, but they wished them to hear and obey what was said to them. The Entwives ordered them to grow according to their wishes, and bear leaf and fruit for their liking. For the Entwives desired order, and plenty, and peace, by which they meant that things should remain where they had set them. So the Entwives made gardens to live in. But we Ents went on wandering, and we only came to the gardens now and again. Then when the darkness came to the north, the new fields, that we saw them more seldom. Darkness came to the north, the Entwives crossed the great river, and made new gardens, and tilled new fields, and we saw them more seldom. After the darkness was overthrown, the land of the Entwives blossomed richly, and their fields were full of corn. Many men learned the crafts of the Entwives and honored them greatly. We were only a legend to them, a secret in the heart of the forest. Yet here we are still, while all the gardens of the Entwives were wasted. Men call them the Brownlands now. I remember it was long ago, in the time of the war between Sauron and the Men of the Sea. Desire came to me to see Fimberthil again. Very fair she was in my eyes, when I had last seen her, though little like the Ent maiden of old. For the Entwives were bent and browned by their labor, their hair parched by the sun to the hue of ripe corn, and their cheeks like red apples. Their eyes were still the eyes of our own people. We crossed over Anduin and came to their land. We found a desert. It was all burned and uprooted, for war had passed over it. But the Entwives were not there. Long we called, long we searched, and we asked all folk we met which way the Entwives had gone. Some said they had never seen them, and some said that they had seen them walking away west, and some said east, and others said south. And nowhere that we went we could find them. Our sorrow was very great. Yet the wild wood called, and we returned to it. For many years we used to go every now and again to look for the Entwives, walking far and wide, calling them by their beautiful names. But as time passed, we went more seldom and wandered less far, and now the Entwives are only a memory for us, and our beards are long and grey. The elves made many songs concerning the search for the Ents, and some of the songs passed into the tongues of men. But we made no songs about it, being content to chant their beautiful names when we thought of the Entwives. We believe that we may meet again in time to come, and perhaps we shall find somewhere a land that we can live together and both be content. It is foreboded that we will only be when we both have lost all we now have. And it may well be that time is drawing near at last, for if Sauron of old destroyed the gardens, the enemy today seems likely to wither all the woods. What's up, girl? How you doing? There was an elvish song that spoke of this, or at least so I understand it. It used to be sung up and down the great river. It was never an Entish song, mark you. It would have been a very long song in the Entish. But we know it by heart, and hum it down again. This is how it runs in your tongue. Ent. When spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bow, when light is on the wild wood stream, and the wind is on the brow, when stride is long, and breath is deep, and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair. Entwife. When spring has come to garth and field, and corn is in the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is in the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair. Ent. When summer lies upon the world, and in moon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves the dreams of trees unfold, when woodland halls are green and cool, and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. Entwife. When summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, though wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun because my land is best. End. When winter came, the winter wild, that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in a bitter rain, I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. Entwife. When winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bow, and light and labor past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. Both. Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find the land where both our hearts may rest. It's a me and Mario, he does say girl. Girl. Treebeard ended his song. That's how it goes, he said. It is elvish, of course, light-hearted, quick-worded, and soon over. I dare say it's fair enough, but the Ents could not say more on their side, if they had time. But now I'm going to stand up and take a little sleep. Where will you stand? We usually lie down to sleep, said Mary. We shall be all right where we are. Lie down to sleep, said Treebeard. Why, of course you do. I was forgetting. Singing that song put me in a mind of old times. Almost thought I was talking to young Entings, I did. Well, you can't lie on the bed. You can lie on the bed. I'm going to stand in the rain. Good night. Hi, Ed. Love you, Ed. Merry and Pippin climbed onto the bed and curled up in the soft grass and fern. It was fresh and sweet-scented and warm. The lights died down, and the glow of the trees faded, but outside under the arch they could see old Treebeard standing, motionless, with his arms raised above his head. The bright stars peered out of the sky and lit the falling water as it spilled into his fingers and head, and drip, drip, dripped in hundreds of silver drops onto his feet. Listening to the tinkling of the drops, the hobbits fell asleep. They woke to find a cool sun shining in the great court and on the floor of the bay. Shreds of high cloud were overhead, running on a stiff easterly wind. Treebeard was not to be seen, but while Merry and Pippin were bathing in the basin by the arch, they heard him humming and singing as he came up the path between the trees. Ho, ho, good morning, Merry and Pippin, he boomed when he saw them. You sleep long. I have been many 100 strides already today. Now we will have a drink and go to the end moot. He poured them 2 full bowls from the stone jar, but from a different jar. From a stone jar, but from a different jar. The taste was not the same as it had been the night before. It was earthier and richer, more sustaining and food-like, so to speak. While the hobbits drank, sitting on the edge of the bed and nibbling small pieces of elf cake, more because they felt that eating was a necessary part of breakfast than because they felt hungry, Treebeard stood, humming in Entish or Elvish or some strange tongue, and looking up at the sky. Where is Entmoot? Pippin ventured to ask. Hoo-eh, Entmoot, said Treebeard, turning round. It is not a place, it is a gathering of Ents, which does not often happen nowadays, but I have managed to make a fair number promise to come. We shall meet in the place where we have always met. Durndingle, men call it. It is way south from here. We must be there before noon. Before long they set off. Treebeard carried the hobbits in his arms as on the previous day. At the entrance to the court, he turned to the right, stepped over the stream, and strode away southwards to the feet of the great tumbled slopes where trees were scanty. Above these the hobbits saw thickets of birch and rowan, and beyond them dark climbing pine woods. Soon Treebeard turned a little away from the hills and plunged into deep groves, where the trees were larger, taller, and thicker than any of the hobbits had ever seen before. For a while they felt faintly the sense of stifling that they had noticed when they first ventured into Fangorn, but it soon passed. Treebeard did not talk to them. I thought I had to burp. Treebeard did not talk to them. He hummed to himself deeply and thoughtfully, but Merry and Pippin caught no proper words. It sounded like boom boom rum boom, borar boom boom, drar boom boom, drar boom, so on with a constant change of note and rhythm. Now and again they thought they heard an answer, a hum or a quiver of sound, but it seemed to come from the earth, or from boughs above their heads, or perhaps from the bowls of the trees. Ow. But Treebeard did not stop and turn his head to either side. They had been going on for a long while. Pippin had tried to keep count of the ant strides, but had failed, getting lost in about 3,000 when Treebeard began to slacken his pace. Suddenly he stopped, put the hobbits down, and raised his curled hands to his mouth so that they made a hollow tube, and he blew a call through them. A great hum rang out, like a deep-throated horn, into the woods, and seemed to echo from the trees. Far off there came from several directions a similar hum, 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 that was not an echo, but an answer. Treebeard now perched Merry and Pippin on his shoulders and strode on again, every now and then sending out another horn call, and each time the answers came louder and nearer. In this way they came at last to what looked like an impenetrable wall of dark, evergreen trees of a kind that the hobbits had never seen before. They branched out right from the roots, where they were densely clad in dark, glossy leaves like thornless holly. They bore many stiff, upright flower spikes with large, shining, olive-colored buds. Turning to the left and skirting this huge hedge, Treebeard came in a few strides to a narrow entrance. Though a worn path passed and dived suddenly down a long, deep slope. The hobbits saw that they were descending into a great dingle, almost as round as a bowl, very wide and deep, crowned at the rim with a high, dark, evergreen hedge. It was smooth and grass-clad inside. There were no trees except 3 very tall and beautiful silver birches that stood at the bottom of the bowl. 2 other paths led down to the dingle, from the west and from the east. Several Ents had already arrived. More were coming down in the other paths, and some were now following Treebeard. As they drew near, the hobbits gazed at them. They expected to see a number of creatures as much like Treebeard as one hobbit is like another, at any rate to a stranger's eye, and they were very much surprised to see nothing of the kind. The Ents were as different from one another as trees from trees. Some as different from one tree as to another of the same amount, but quite different growth and history, and some as different from one tree kind from another as birch, beech, oak, and fir. As birch from beech and oak from fir. There were a few older Ents, bearded and gnarled like hail, but ancient trees, though none of them looked as ancient as Treebeard, and they were tall, strong Ents, clean-limbed and smooth-skinned like forest trees in their prime. But there were no young Ents, no saplings. Altogether, there were about 2 dozen standing in the wide, grassy floor of the dingle, and many more were marching in. At first, Merry and Pippin were struck chiefly by the variety that they saw, the many shapes and colors, the differences in girth and height, the length of leg and arm, and indifferent number of toes and fingers, anything from 3 to 9. A few seemed more or less related to Treebeard, and reminded them of beech trees or oaks. But there were other kinds. Some were called the chestnut, brown-skinned Ents with large, splayed-finger hands and short, thick legs. Some were called the ash, tall, straight gray Ents with many fingered hands and long legs. Some the fir, the tallest Ents, and others the birch, the rowan, and the linden. But when the Ents all gathered round Treebeard, bowing their heads slightly, murmuring in their slow, musical voices, and looking long and intently at the strangers, then the hobbits saw that they were all of the same kindred, and all had the same eyes, not all so old or so deep as Treebeard's, but all the same slow, steady, thoughtful expression, and the same green flicker. I'm not going to thank you for following, because your username is quite, I don't know what to make of it. As soon as the whole company was assembled, standing in a wide circle around Treebeard, a curious and unintelligible conversation began. The Ents began to murmur slowly. First one joined, and then another, until they were all chanting together in a long, rising, falling rhythm, now louder on one side of the ring, now dying away there, and rising a great boom on the other side. Though he could not catch or understand any of the words, he supposed the language was Entish. Pippin found that sound very pleasant to listen to at first, but gradually his attention wavered. After a long time, and the chant showed no signs of slackening, he found himself wondering, since Entish was such an unhasty language, whether they had yet got further than good morning, and if Treebeard was to call the roll, how many days it was to sing all their names. I wonder what the Entish is for yes or no, he thought. He yawned. Treebeard was immediately aware of him. Ha hey, my Pippin, he said. The other Ents all stopped their chant. You are hasty folk, I was forgetting. And anyway, it is wearisome listening to speech you do not understand. You may get down now. I have told your names to the Entmoot, and they have seen you. They have agreed that you are not orcs, and that a new line shall be put in the old lists. We have got no further yet, but that is quick work for the Entmoot. You and Mary can stroll about in the dingle if you like. There is a well of good water if you need refreshing, away yonder in the north bank. There are still some words to speak to the moot before the moot really begins. I will come see you again, and tell you how things are going. He put the hobbits down. Before they walked away, they bowed low. This feat seemed to amuse the Ents very much, to judge by the tone of their murmurs and the flicker of their eyes, but they soon turned back to their own business. Merry and Pippin climbed up the path and came in from the west and looked through the opening in the great hedge. Long tree-clad slopes rose from the lip of the dingle, and away beyond them, above the fir trees and the furthest ridge of the rose, sharp and white, the peak of High Mountain. Southwards to their left they could see the forest falling away down in the grey distance. There, far away, was a pale green glimmer that Mary guessed to be a glimpse of the plains of Rohan. I wonder where Isengard is, said Pippin. I don't know quite where we are, said Mary. But that peak is probably Methedras. As far as I can remember, the ring of Isengard lies a fork or a deep cleft to the end of the mountains. It is probably down behind this great ridge. There seems to be smoke or haze over there, left on the peak, don't you think? What is Isengard like? Said Pippin. I wonder what Ents can do about it anyway. So do I, said Mary. Isengard is sort of ring of rocks or hills, I think, with a flat space inside and an island or pillar of rock at the middle called Orthanc. Saruman has a tower on it. There is a gate, perhaps more than one, and encircling a wall. I believe there is a stream running through it, comes out of the mountains, and flows on across the gap of Rohan. It does not seem the sort of place for Ents to tackle, but I have an odd feeling about the Ents. Somehow I don't think they are quite safe, and well, funny as they seem, they seem slow, queer, and patient, almost sad. Yet I believe they could be aroused. If that happened, I would rather not be on the other side. Yes, said Pippin. I know what you mean. There might be all the difference between the old cow sitting and thoughtfully chewing and a bull charging, and the change might come suddenly. I wonder if Treebeard will rouse them. I'm sure he means to try, but they don't like being roused. Treebeard got roused himself last night, and then bottled it up again. The hobbits turned back. The voices of the Ents were still rising and falling in their conclave. The sun had risen high enough to look over the high edge, and gleamed out on the tops of birches and lit the northward side of the dingle with cool yellow light. I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that it's called a dingle. I've never been able to get over this. Every time I read this book, I'm like, dude, why is it called... I'm not going to get into this. Thank you for the time update, Gank. Why is it dingle? Forget me. The sun had now risen high enough to look over the high edge, gleamed on the tops of the birches, and lit the northward side of the dingle with a cool yellow light. There they saw a little glittering fountain. They walked along the rim of the great bowl of their feet in the evergreens. It was pleasant to feel the cool grass of their toes again, and not be in a hurry, and then they climbed down to the gushing water. They drank a little, clean, cold, sharp draught, and sat down on a mossy stone, watching the patches of sun on the grass and shadows of the sailing clouds passing over the floor of the dingle. The murmur of the Ents went on. It seemed very strange and remote place outside their world, and far from everything that ever happened to them. Great longing came over them from one of the faces and voices of their companions, especially for Frodo and Sam, and for Strider. Last there came a pause in the Ent voices, and looking up, they saw Treebeard coming towards them, with another Ent at his side. Here I am again, said Treebeard. Are you getting weary or feeling impatient, eh? Well, I am afraid that you must not get impatient yet. We have finished the first stage now, but I have still got to explain things again to those who live long way off, far from Isengard, and to those that I could not get round to before the moot. And after that we shall decide what to do. However, deciding what to do does not take Ents as long as going over all the facts and events, and they have to make up their minds about. Still, it's no use denying. We shall be here a long time yet. A couple of days, very likely. I have brought you a companion. He is Enthouse nearby. Bregalad is his elvish name. Since he has already made up his mind, and does not need to remain at the moot. He is the nearest thing among us to a hasty Ent. You ought to get together. Goodbye. I fucking love Treebeard so much. Treebeard turned and left them. Bregalad stood before some time surveying the hobbits solemnly. Then he looked at them, wondering when he would show any signs of hastiness. They looked at him, wondering when he would show any signs of hastiness. He was tall and seemed to be one of the younger Ents. He had smooth, shining skin on his arms and legs. His lips were ruddy, and his hair was gray-green. He could bend and sway like a slender tree in the wind. At last he spoke, and his voice, though resonant, was higher and clearer than Treebeard's. My friends. Let's go for a walk, he said. I am Bregalad. That is Quickbeam in your language, but it is only a nickname, of course. They have called me that ever since I said yes to the elder Ent before he had finished his question. Also, I drink quickly and go out while some are still wetting their beards. Come with me. He reached down 2 shapely arms and gave a long-fingered hand to each of the hobbits. All that day they walked in the woods with him, singing and laughing, for Quickbeam often laughed. He laughed if the sun came out from behind a cloud. He laughed if they came upon a stream or a spring. Then he stopped and splashed his feet and head in the water. He laughed sometimes at the sound of whisper in the trees. Whenever he saw a rowan tree, he halted while his arms stretched out and sang, and swayed as he sang. At nightfall, he brought them to his Enthouse, nothing more than a mossy stone set upon turves under a green bank. Rowan trees grew in a circle about it, and there was water, as in all Enthouses, a spring bubbling out from the bank. Rowan trees grew in a circle about it, and there was water, as in all Enthouses, a spring bubbling out from the bank. They talked for a while as darkness fell on the forest. Not far away the voices of the Entmoot could be heard still going on, but now they seemed deeper and less leisurely, and every now and again one great voice would rise in high and quickening music, while the others died away. But beside them, Bregalad spoke gently in their own tongue, almost whispering, and they heard that he belonged to Skinbark's people, and the country where they had lived had been ravaged. That seemed to the hobbits quite enough to explain his hastiness, at least in the matter of orcs. There were rowan trees in my home, said Bregalad, softly and sadly. Rowan trees that took root when I was Enting, many, many years ago, in the quiet of the world. The oldest were planted by the Ents to try and please the Entwives, but they looked at them and smiled and said they knew where wider blossom and richer fruit were growing. There are no trees of all that race, the people of the Rose, that are so beautiful to me. And these trees grew and grew till the shadow of each was like a green hall, and their red berries in the autumn were a burden, and beauty and a wonder. Birds used to flock there. I like birds, even when they chatter, and the rowan has enough and to spare. And the rowan has enough and to spare. I don't think that's correct. That's literally what it says. But birds became unfriendly and greedy and tore the trees, and threw the fruit down and did not eat it. Then orcs came with axes and cut down my trees. I came and called them by their long names, but they did not quiver. They did not hear or answer. They lay dead. O Orn fair, Lasimista Carnimiri. O rowan fair, upon your hair how white the blossom lay. O rowan mine, I saw your shine upon the summer's day. Your rind so bright, your leaves so light, your voice so cool and soft. Upon your head how golden red, the crown you bore aloft. O rowan dead, upon your head, your hair is dry and grey. Your crown is spilled, your voice is stilled, for ever and a day. O ornate fair, Lasimista Carnimiri. A dingle is just a small grassy place in a wooden area. I didn't know that that was like a real word. The hobbits fell asleep to the sound of the soft ringing of Bregalad, and some to lament in many tongues the fall of trees that he had loved. The next day they spent also in his company, but they did not go far from his house. Most of the time they sat silent under the shelter of the bank, and for the wind was cooler, the clouds closer and grayer, there was little sunshine. In the distant voices the ents and at the moot still rose and fell, sometimes loud and strong, sometimes low and sad, sometimes quickening, sometimes slow and solemn as a dirge. The second night came, and still the ents held conclave after hurrying clouds and fitful stars. The third day broke, bleak and windy. At sunrise the ents' voices rose to greater clamor and then died down again. As the morning wore and the wind fell and the air grew heavy with expectancy, the hobbits could see that Bregalad was now listening intently, although to them, down in the dell of his hen house. The sound of the moot was faint. The afternoon came, and the sun, going west towards the mountains, sent out long yellow beams between the cracks of the fissures of the clouds. Suddenly they were aware of everything that was very quiet. The whole forest stood in listening silence. Of course, the ant voices had stopped. What did it mean? Bregalad was standing up erect and tense, looking back northwards towards Dern Dingle. Then with a crash came the great ringing sound. Ra-ru-ma! The trees quivered and bent as if a gust had struck them. There was another pause, and the marching music began like solemn drums, and above the rolling beats and booms were welled voices singing high and strong. We come with roll of drum. Ta runda 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 ram. The ents were coming. Ever nearer and louder rose their song. We come with horn and drum. Ta runa 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 ram. Bregalad picked up the hobbits and strode from his house. Before long they saw the marching line approaching. The ents were swinging along with great strides down the slope towards them. Treebeard was at their head, and some 50 followers were behind him, 2 abreast, keeping steep with their feet and beating time with their hands upon their flanks. As they drew near, the flash and flicker of their eyes could be seen. Hum, here we come with a boom. And here we come at last, called Treebeard, when he caught sight of the Bregalad and the hobbits. Come join the moot, we are off to Isengard. To Isengard, the ent cried in many voices. To Isengard! To Isengard, though Isengard be ringed and barred with doors of stone, though Isengard be strong and hard, as cold as stone and bare as bone. We go to war, to hew the stone and break the door. For bowl and bow and burning now, the furnace roars, we go to war. To the land of gloom with tramp of doom, with roll of drum we come. To Isengard with doom we come, with doom we come. So they sang as they marched southwards. I'm wrapping up stream as soon as we're done with this chapter, which is in like a page. Bregalad, his eyes shining, swung into the line beside Treebeard. The old ent now took the hobbits back and set them on the shoulders again, and so they rode proudly at the head of the singing company with beating hearts and heads held high. Though they had expected something to happen eventually, they were amazed at the change that had come over the ents. It seemed now as the sudden bursting flood that had long been held back by a dike. The ents made up their minds rather quickly after all, didn't they? Pippin ventured to say after some time, when for a moment the singing paused, and only the beating of hands and feet was heard. Quickly, said Treebeard. Yes indeed, quicker than I expected. Indeed, I have not seen them roused like this for many an age. We ents do not like being roused, and we are never roused unless it is clear that our trees and our lives are in great danger. It has not happened in the forest since the wars of Sauron and the men of the sea. It is the work, the wanton hewing, Raurum, without even a bad excuse of feeding the fires, that has so angered us, and the treachery of a neighbor. Who would have helped us? Who should have helped us? Wizards ought to know better. They do know better. There is no curse in Elvish, Entish, or tongues of men bad enough for such treachery. Down with Saruman. Will you really break down the doors of Isengard? Said Merry. Well, we could, you know. We do not know, perhaps, how strong we are. Maybe you have heard of trolls. They are mighty strong. But trolls are only counterfeits, made by the enemies of great darkness, in mockery events, as orcs were of elves. We are stronger than trolls. We are made of bones of the earth. We can split stone like the roots of trees, only quicker, far quicker, if our minds are roused. we are not hewn down or destroyed by a fire or a blast of sorcery, we could split Isengard into splinters and crack it into walls of rubble. But Saruman will try to stop you, won't he? Yes, that is so. I have not forgotten it. Indeed, I have thought long about it. But you see, many of the ants are younger than I am, by many lives of trees. They are all roused now, and their mind is all one thing, breaking Isengard. But they will start thinking again before long. They will cool down a little when we take our evening drink. What a thirst we shall have! Well, let them march now and sing. We have a long way to go, but there is time ahead for thought. It is something to have started. Treebeard marched on, singing with others for a while, but after a time his voice died to a murmur and fell silent again. Pippin could see his old brow was wrinkled and knotted. At last he looked up, and Pippin could see a sad look in his eyes. Sad, but not unhappy. There was a light in them, as if the green flame had sunk deeper into the dark wells of his thought. Of course it is likely enough, my friends, he said slowly. Likely enough we are going to our doom. Last march of the Ents. But if we stayed at home and did nothing, doom would find us anyway, sooner or later. That thought has long been growing in our hearts. That is why we are marching now. It was not a hasty resolve. Now at least the last march of the Ents may be worth a song. Aye, he sighed. We may help the other peoples before we pass away. Still, I should have liked to see songs come true about the Ent wives. I should have dearly liked to see Fimbrith again. But there, my friends, songs like trees bear fruit only in their own time and their own way, and sometimes they are withered untimely. The Ents were striding on at great pace. They had descended into a long fold of the land that fell away southward, and they began to climb up and up onto the high western ridge. The woods fell away, and they came scattered groups of birch, and then to bare slopes where only a few gaunt pine trees grew. The sun sank behind the dark hill back in the front. Grey dusk fell. Thank you for the hydrate. Pippin looked behind. The number of Ents had grown, or what was happening? Where the dim, bare slopes that they had crossed should lie, he thought he saw groves of trees. But they were moving. Could it be that the trees of Fangorn were awake, and the forest was rising, marching over the hills to war? He rubbed his eyes, wondering if sleep and shadow had deceived him. But the great grey shapes moved steadily onward. There was a noise like wind in many branches. The Ents were drawing near the crest of the ridge now, and all song had ceased. Nights fell, and there was silence. Nothing was to be heard save a faint quiver of earth beneath the feet of the Ents, and a rustle, the shade of a whisper as many drifting leaves. At last they stood upon the summit, and looked down to the dark pit, the great cleft at the end of the mountains. Nan Kurunir, the valley of Saruman. Night lies over Isengard, said Treebeard. That concludes chapter 4. The next chapter for our read will be chapter 5, The White Rider. Thank you for joining me for this reading of Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, chapter 3 and chapter 4. Next time will be chapter 5. If you would like to catch us reading this live, you feel free to join our community. We are very open and welcoming to everybody. We are live on Twitch and YouTube Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Hope to catch you around. Please feel free to come chat us up. We do love to bring newcomers in. And I hope you enjoyed everything. The Lord of the Rings readings are not monetized because I choose to use Lord of the Rings music in the background, which is my fault. But if you would care to check out our Patreon or our memberships or anything like that, I would appreciate it. Yes. Thank you for coming, YouTube. This VOD will be edited, so the beginning of stream will be cut to reading, as well as the end. If you would like to see the whole VOD, you can catch it on Twitch. Thank you. Well, my arm's jiggling. Crazy. Alright. Well, folks, that's it for the day. Daddy is sleepy. Oh, my God. Daddy is so sleepy. There's much to be done. I do need to clean
today.
Arthur left quietly so he did not disturb your reading.
Oh.
I told him that you loved him. He refused to say it back. He does care about you and enjoys your streams. He said, "Take care, Sheriff, you are the best. Always look both ways before crossing the street." Or something like that. Seacrest is out.
Dag, thank you for the 100 bits and the goodbye for Arthur. That is very sweet. So cute. Got up every 2 hours and cried? What? Ow! My knee hurts. Gotta hang up. Go hang thine caps and consume some sustenance, weary travelers. Fare thee well until we meet again. I would like to do voice chat while I clean tonight, but I need to take a break from talking for a little while. Because my jaw really hurts now. I think 2 chapters is my cap, dude. We're like a third of the way through the book, though, already, so that's pretty good. Like a baby. PC once more, yes. Thanks for streaming. Take care. Good luck at TTRPG, Gank. Thank you. Watch your back, Sourman. Those ends beyond you. They're gonna fucking eat your butt, dude. Raid? Raid? I don't know who to raid. Does anyone have a raid gag? My knee and my thighs are, like, killing me. I probably need to work out, but, like, Jesus. They really hurt. When are you going to fire up that printer? I need to put filament in it and find a place to set it down. The best idea I have is this table. But it's like, I use it for streaming sometimes, so I don't know if I can use it. I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss. I might need to build a table. Audrey enjoys raid her. Do you have a raid redeem? Good sir? I do. Redeem away. Yeah. I'm kind of stumped on where to put the printer. Thank you, King. I will teleport from my lower tower far off land, not even Middle Earth. What's up, Doo-Doo? Dudo, sorry. Dudo. Is 5K in Washington bucks you happy? Yes, thank you. I just want to make it fair for everybody else, that's all. Peace out, Joseph. I hope you're having a good day. I think Thursday will be our next stream. So Thursday will be the next stream. I'm gonna try to go to the P.O. box tomorrow. It's a long drive though, so I hope I can get there before they close. So I'm gonna try to go to P.O. box tomorrow, and we'll do some P.O. box openings from Dag. And then eventually here I'll figure out how to make this 3D printer work. Can the 3D printer run unattended, or is that a hazard? Mail, what if I tried? I only am doing P.O. boxes to people who are on the list, so if you want to be on the list, you gotta let me know. I don't know if the noise of the printer will interfere with streaming. It might. Unattended is fine. You have a box now. I do, Fuji. You're on my list. I have the box temporarily. It's not a long-term thing. We just have a temporary box for now. Can I be on the list? Do you fully intend to send something? Because yes, if you do. We'll only have it for a couple months, so. But yeah, we're just gonna have the P.O. box for a couple months and then we'll shut it down again. It's too expensive for me to keep it open all the time, and it's too far away for me to check it all the time. So I'll basically, I don't know. I'll basically send instructions with the P.O. box information.
I'll take a gallon of root beer. That sounds fucking lit. I can maybe, just maybe. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm gonna go chug a bunch of Pedialyte. So I'm on the list. If you fully intend to use it, then yes. There's a lot of people who've been waiting to use the list for a while, so. Willing to share your P.O. Box info if you want to share your list with me. I'm willing to share your P.O. Box info if you want to share the list with me. I just need to get on Discord and just do it. I don't know what the fuck my problem is. It's just DMing. I just need to do it, though. It's beautiful. Prismatic. Yes, you can also... Throne has been a great alternative for P.O. Box gifts. You can suggest things to the wish list anonymously. Or not anonymously. Yeah, you do, lol. I got a problem with DMing. Yes, your slightly merry birthday day. That's right! Okay, I will... Okay, so Fuji's on the list. Maybe make me do that in voice chat tonight, guys. Make me DM everyone. Because that's on my list of things I need to do. So... I answered almost all my Instagram DMs the other day. That's pretty good. By answered, I mean I opened them and ignored most of them. But I did read some of them and watched the videos that were sent. But... I do implore you guys, please, please God, don't DM me for no reason. So proud of you on Dick Sword. Still gotta accept my friend request. I thought I already did that. Okay. You did not. Well, I don't know where the friend requests go. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, so... I'm gonna go... I kind of want to go for a walk. I want to be in the sun. I want a paddleboard. Riding that paddleboard was awesome. I felt so peaceful. I was just in the middle of a river by myself for once. Like, no phone, no one to bother me. Just on a river. Something about that, man. It was just so nice. It was so nice. The only thing that could make that better would be some music. I watched my printer for the first hour. It is mesmerizing. Now still says pending. Well, we'll see. Peace, have fun. Thanks, pervert. I hope you have a good day. I have a lot of ideas for 3D printing, but it's stuff that I would need to design. So, makes my life harder, I suppose. Ow! My leg hurts. But man, paddleboarding is fun. And I guess paddleboards aren't that expensive. So I'm like fiending now. I'm like scheming. I wonder if I can get one used for even cheaper. Or if I could just borrow one from someone. I kind of don't want to own more stuff. But I would like to paddleboard. I miss being in the forest. I need to go back to the forest. Tinkercad is easy as CAD and it's free. Tinkercad. All web-based bunch of help. No shoes on the couch, banana. I'm not wearing shoes. Also, I will put shoes on my couch if I want to. I don't give a fuck. Your lady does not care. What else is there to touch on? Thank you again to everybody. Thank you again to... I just realized I was smothering the mic. Thank you again to everybody who participated in the sponsorship. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be transitioning these coming days into turning my focus onto certain things with stream and content creation. Now that I've kind of taken it easy for a couple weeks, I can kind of see clearer what I need to be focusing on the most. Yes. Normally you have Birks on the wall. No Birks or boots on the old emerald couch. They're just not on my feet right now. Birks can go anywhere. I hope it's fart jars. One can dream. I don't know. I want to focus more on YouTube and make streams more fun, and I don't know. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I think that I've kind of put a lot of focus into things that didn't matter as much, and I don't know. It's tough trying to figure out how to move forward in this job, but I think I have an idea now, and I think I'll just go with the flow, and I think I'll try harder not to stress myself out. I think I can be better about that now. I'm not going to work 70 hours a week anymore. I don't want that for myself. My life has slipped away for the last 4 years. I've been working so much. I haven't gotten to go out and just enjoy life. And I don't think that that's very healthy for me. So, I'm going to kind of reevaluate things. 70 hours? Woof, yeah. Bong rips for Jesus, dude. Bong rips for Jesus. Feel free to open boxes I sent you. You can just set aside with what the hell is this for stuff. Wait, what? I want to open them on stream. Is that okay? At least you're getting paid handsomely, I hope. I mean, I make about as much doing this job as I would doing a full-time job, too. I mean, I tend to work more hours sometimes, depending. And I work from home, which makes the work-life balance really difficult, but I make enough money to survive, and that's all that really matters. Like $1,000 a week. Oh my god, are you kidding? No. No. At least you're getting paid handsomely. I can make my bills, and that's all that matters. May not be here. I always watch the VOD. Okay. What are we talking? Enough for me to pay my bills. Should you imagine commuting to fart into office jars? That would be kind of cool, I guess. Could build up the farts on the way. I think I shall take my break, and then I'll be in voice chat later while I clean and DM everybody. I need to fix my van. I don't have time, though. Anyway, it's almost 6:30, so I best be off. We are going to raid Aubrey and Joy's on Twitch. Hopefully the raids work today. Yesterday they were not working very well. Enjoy your evenings, rest well. I may be off to my van down by the river. Ooh! Go get it! Get it, Fooj! Have fun. Ow. Sounds cool. Be safe. Don't worry about the boxes. You should love them. What? The more you tell me not to worry, the more worried I get. Bye, Dust. I hope you have a good day. Okay, let's see here. Raid. Then you should worry. Ready to upgrade my badge? Does that make you worry less? Yes. Shall worry, the moose are coming. They'll kill us all! Can this fucking thing function for once in my life? Let's start the raid. There we go. Alright, everybody. If you are on YouTube... I'm getting rid of this for a second. If you are on YouTube, all of our links are down below in the description. We stream Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time if you would like to join our community.
There's also the Discord, which we love dearly. I'll be in voice chat later. It's open to everybody. We also have Patreon, which I don't post a lot on, but sometimes people like to use that for extra support if they don't care to donate or do things such as that. Though you guys just being here helps out a ton. Don't forget to check out the socials. I'll be posting on those again soon. I know I keep saying that. I really am trying. Please bear with me, folks. It's been a hard year. It's been a hard 4 years. Let's be real. I can't type in my own chat, apparently, so that's fun. I don't know when the raid's gonna start, so that's fun. This is mildly irritating. I typed in my chat and it didn't work. Socials. Do it! Get food. I'm going to make chicken Alfredo with no chicken. I'm going to make Alfredo. Put it in the chat. Why isn't it working? I love this for me. Anyway, yep. Join the Discord. Hang out. Do the things. I love you all very dearly. Thursday we won't be reading. We will be doing some openings and hanging out. I might do a shorter stream on Thursday as well. We'll see. I don't know. I love you all very much. Praise potassium, stay ripe, and don't let the bed bugs bite. And I will catch you guys later. Seems to have sent them already. Goodbye, YouTube. Have a fair evening.